That's it. We are live. Hello, everybody. Today is January the 4th of January the 4th, 2019. I'm going to get the wrong year then. So happy Flatmas 2019 to both of you and everybody in the chat room. And today we have Aaron, Earth Aaron, talking about Project Lumen, and Mr. Thrive and Survive. So
hey everyone.
Hey. So, did you have a nice Flatmas festivity, Rich?
I did, because I did nothing.
Yeah.
It was nice and relaxing. How about you all?
Yes, I had quite a nice time in the end. I saw all my kids. I saw one on Christmas Eve, one on Christmas Day, one on Boxing Day, so I can't really complain.
Oh, you saw your grandkids too, right?
Yeah. Thank goodness. I'm seeing them next week, or one of them next. Well, actually, I think both of them next week. So yeah, phew. And yeah, it's quite quiet, really. But yeah, what about you, Aaron?
Yeah, it was good. I actually went back to Kansas for a few days, and the weather was doable, you know, as compared to California. I've gotten quite spoiled with the weather in California normally, but it was pretty good, and I guess it was good to see some of my family. Some of my family, we got into it, and you know, like people disagree with me. So, but yeah, it was all right. In the end, it worked out all right, I guess. So, and I'm back. So it's good to be back in sunny California.
I have to say that my children, guess what my children bought me for Christmas? I did make a little video about it, but I got a Flat Earth mug, a Flat Earth poster, and a Flat Earth t-shirt, and they were smiling at me.
I sense a friend. They know you're a flat earther then.
Great big poster. You won't believe what it measured to. 33 by 33 centimeters. But anyway, and now they're getting me a frame, and now I'm going to have it in here somewhere. But yeah, I got a lot of flat earth stuff. And in fact, someone in the messages said, "Where did you get that from?" So I had to put the link in. So on the little post with where I've put my t-shirt and thanks kids, the link to where they got my stuffs from is on there, the website. Because I've put Flat Earth is here to stay.
Not going anywhere. Motionless.
So we are gathered here today because Aaron's going to talk about Project Lumen with Mr. Thrive and to explain it to him a bit.
Right. So I am. Here I am. You know, I was really hoping to have the thing launched, honestly, by the first of the year. I mean, I was hoping by Christmas. I was hoping by the first of the year. It's just, this is such a huge project that I'm working on that it just keeps on taking longer. And, you know, there's unforeseeable challenges that take unforeseeable amounts of time. And so I was hoping to have a demo. I still don't have a demo, unfortunately, but soon, it's going to be coming live to the internet. And I really believe that this is going to change a lot of things. You know, there's been a lot of issues in the media lately, like censorship, a lot of that going on. Well, my platform addresses that. It solves that, really.
Do you want to just explain what Project Lumen is for those that maybe haven't heard about it?
Sure, yeah. So Project Lumen is basically a whole set of initiatives that I've been working on for decades, most of my life and probably previous lives, to essentially provide alternative solutions to the world, technologically based, that enable us to essentially be a decentralized society. That you know, we don't have to play the same games that we've been playing for centuries, where we have these central banks that seem to control everything. We have these centralized governments which control everything, and how they control it is, putting us into smaller and smaller boxes and limiting our freedom of speech. And so the technology I've been working on is basically, it's a bunch of different platforms and tools that would give us the ability to have our own currencies, our own communications channels that don't go through any centralized parties, have our own governing organization systems that basically allow us to organize ourselves at a governing level, governance level, and therefore kind of not really needing a lot of these centralized governments as much, and ultimately, I believe, replace them with something that's better, and that's been the kind of the overall vision of Project Lumen. It's light-based technology, which is basically to do good for the world, to do things that are in the benefit of all concerned. And who is concerned? Well, the entire populace of this entire world is who's concerned about this. We have a lot of problems in our society, and I noticed that from a very early age. And I vowed to do something about it, and so this is what I've been doing. And it's been a long, arduous process. I've been through so many roller coasters along the way. And I believe a large part of that is because this is such a profound project. It's disruptive to a lot of current existing power structures, and so essentially I wouldn't say it's going against these systems. I'd say that it's creating alternatives for us to use that eventually might replace the old, outdated systems. But I'm not trying to just like tear down the current existing structures. More, I'm saying, okay, well, here's some alternatives. We can start using them, and over time, I do believe that they will become the mainstream that everyone uses.
Yeah, because Mr. Thrive and Survive likes alternatives, don't you, Mr. Thrive and Survive? You want to get us away from this, Facebook whole thing, the system.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like music to my ears here already.
That's great. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, but and I guess we're all on YouTube and we're all on Twitter. But all these guys are demonstrating that they're censoring us, that they're taking it upon themselves to decide what is free speech, what is valid for their platforms. They're supposed to be public platforms, but really, they're acting like they get to choose what's appropriate, and it's really a violation. It's a violation of the Constitution. And so, I've been very into this idea of creating decentralized platforms that allow us to, share, allow us to do what we're doing now, as in having multi-person streaming video conversations and be able to, stream that out to the world, or just put up videos or posts or images and, comments and discussions, and even be able to organize that stuff. I'll tell you one thing that I've noticed for a long time is that these companies like Google and all of them, really, all the big kind of media moguls, they do not want us to be organized. So what they do is they give us technology that distracts us. You go type a search into Google, you're hit with a bunch of ads, and the number of ads has been increasing more and more over the years. And more it's biased search results, because Google does manipulate those search results, and for the benefit of their who knows exactly how they do it, but it's very apparent. If you just do a comparison of DuckDuckGo and Google search engines, you'll see that DuckDuckGo is relevant and Google is biased, and that's a major problem, really. It's something that could be fixed if we just had our own platforms. And so I've been seeing that we've been limited. They've been kind of hunkering down more and more on limiting our free speech, and I've seen that as a major problem. And it's fortunate that I've been working on this as long as I have, because this is such a major, huge project that I wish I had it already. I really do, because now we're seeing this all come to light. But maybe now is the right time, because it is all coming to light. We just had CEO of Google before Congress. We had Mark Zuckerberg before Congress, and they both lied. They're just lying through their teeth. And are they going to see any repercussions from that lying? Probably not. Are they going to continue to get away with the kind of limitation of our freedom of speech that they've been doing? Yeah, they are. So what's the solution we have? We need our own platform. It's plain and simple. And multiple platforms, really, so that there is some competition. There's some contingencies. If one goes down, we have another one that's up. And also in the monetary world, PayPal is doing the same thing, where they're cutting off certain parties just because they don't agree with with what they're sharing. So like Alex Jones, they're going to cut him off from being able to use PayPal. That was a major part of his income stream, and they just cut it off. And because PayPal is a centralized company, they can do that. Whereas if we were using things like Bitcoin or just cryptocurrencies in general, no one can do that. They can't cut. There's no central authority that can say, oh, Alex Jones can no longer use Bitcoin. No, you can't do that. And so that's a big part of what I'm doing as well, is enabling people to use PayPal and various other payment gateways out of the box, unless they get censored on those platforms. And they can also use cryptocurrencies. And I've got over 100 different cryptocurrencies that would be basically work through this payment gateway. So that's going to be big, because normally I think a lot of people don't know, they don't understand how crypto works, and they don't understand how to use it. And PayPal is really simple. Well, actually, crypto is pretty simple too. And once you start figuring it out, it's just about as easy as PayPal, but much more safe and secure, in the sense that you can't have someone come along and just decide you no longer get to use our payment gateway. So that's a major part as well. And then kind of going back to the organization part of it all, where Google's distracting us, Twitter's distracting us, Facebook's distracting us. They don't want us to be organized. They don't want us to be directed in our research, in our online life. They want us to just kind of be bouncing all over the place, so they can diagnose us with ADD and give us Adderall, which really just it doesn't help the situation. It just makes it so that like people think that they're distracted, but really it's the technology that's not conducive to a directed mind. As well as the schools. We all went through school, and they try to make it like, if you are there looking out the window, then you must have ADD. If you're wanting to focus on something other than the exact thing that you're supposed to be studying right now, then you have ADD. You have a mental disorder, is what they want to tell all these kids. They want to put them on amphetamines, like Ritalin and Adderall, or rather than a better approach, which statistically is a better approach, is let's observe these children. Let's see what they're passionate about, and when we discover something they're passionate about, let's put that in front of them, and let's help them focus on this area that they're passionate about. And what will they do? They'll actually become smarter. They will learn to think for themselves. They will study these topics and probably go on to study other topics on their own accord, and learn much more than what the established school system teaches them. Because the established school system, academia, is really just based on memorization. And what we're talking about here is critical thinking and logic and reason, and learning how to actually use that, and how to do research that is unbiased and is going to produce results that corroborate with other people's research. And then as we all kind of start doing direct research and we're able to come up with similar results, we know we're onto something. And that's really what science is about. And so Project Lumen is about kind of implementing the tools that would allow us to get organized, allow us to do research that's directed and focused and collaborative with other people, with other researchers, allow us to start organizing this massive body of data. Think about like all the YouTube videos out there where it's just one after the next and it's disorganized. It's you know, where is all this data being aggregated and stored relative to all the other data? It's nowhere. Google gives us no tools to organize this data. They only give us tools to just get distracted and lost every day. You know, no one gives us these tools, really. I mean, there's a few project management kind of tools out there, but no one's using that kind of stuff to organize these this research and these endeavors. You know, here on Sun and Moon, and Rich, you've done all of this research into you know, our cosmology, and that's great, important stuff, because especially because we realize we've been lied to about it, we have to discover it again for ourselves. How do we organize that? You know, I know you guys you've done your best to try to figure out how to organize it, but how can we organize it on a collective scale? You know, that's been a big question I've been asking. And then, you know, when someone does that research, when someone presents their findings in the form of content that they're creating, how are they getting rewarded for that? You know, shouldn't people be able to make a living off of doing honest research and presenting their findings? Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. They should be able to make a living off of that. But you have PayPal that's, you know, pulling funding, the payment gateway away from people. You got these various social network platforms that are just pulling down people's accounts. They might have, you know, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but just because you know, one little thing that they show that oh, they use directed energy weapons in California, and here's the evidence, boom, we're going to essentially, you're going to block your account. And that's happening. You know, you guys know this is happening, but you know, this is a problem that we don't need to have. You know, there's no reason why we can't have our own platform. It is a challenging project, I'll admit, to build our own platform, but it's needed, and so that's why I'm doing it, and I'm dedicated. You know, I've been through hell and back many times to achieve this endeavor. You know, so I'm not stopping. I'm not going to give up. And so, you know, stay tuned. It's coming soon to the internet near you.
Well, we look forward to that. I followed you for rather a long time on this. Anyway, carry on, Rich. You were going to say something.
Yeah, Aaron, can you define what you mean by the platform? Build our own platform. What does that entail? Or is that the whole Project Lumen thing is a platform?
Yes and no. So a platform would be like YouTube. YouTube is a platform. Twitter is a platform. A platform is basically a website that you log into, and you have your own account, and then you can maybe post videos or images or whatever, and then, you know, have some social networking capabilities like being able to chat and direct message. That's kind of a typical platform. And so that's what Twitter is. That's what YouTube is, and a lot of others. You know, that's just kind of what they call them as a platform. To have our own would be one that's built by someone. Well, it's built by someone who's not like an elite, first of all, and it's also, you know, all the platforms I mentioned, Google and Facebook and Twitter, are all centralized, meaning that there are administrators that actually have access to all of our data, even though we might think it's private. They have access to all of our private data, and they get to choose what is considered appropriate or not. And the way they choose is sort of a closed book process. We don't really know what it is, and I know, like on Facebook and a lot of these platforms, when you get blocked or censored, they don't really tell you why. They don't. A lot of times, they won't even tell you the offending post, or, you know, they just tell you, oh, someone flagged your content, or something, you know, did not meet our policy guidelines or community standards or whatever. And you're like, well, I can't even fix this. I can't even change the ways I'm doing things because you didn't even tell me what I did wrong, you know. And that's their right, because they're a centralized platform. But if we had a decentralized platform, then that would mean that pretty much everyone's protected. And now if someone comes on there and tries to do something that isn't appropriate, and it's inappropriate based on like enough people all agreeing to that, then we can kind of have almost more of like a public vote on the kinds of content that is appropriate. And that's how I believe moderation should happen. You know, and that way we can learn from our mistakes. If someone's like, oh, I didn't realize that was inappropriate, then they can adjust. Or if they want to contest it, they can. And it's more like a trial of their peers, you know, because really what we're looking at, what we're seeing in the world is Google is a political organization. They have political power. So they're one of the greatest powers in all the world. And for us to ignore that is to, you know, we're sticking our head in the sand. They are able to lobby at a political level, and they do. And they are also, you know, manipulate. They're given money. Really, a lot of it's even our tax money in order to, I don't know, promote certain ideas and de-promote certain other ideas. And we have no say in that. There's no transparency in that. And so this is a huge problem. It's not a republic. It's not a democracy. It's a dictatorship, really. You know, Google has the final say, and whatever they say goes. And that's really not how especially in the U.S., how our government's supposed to be. But also, I believe the whole world should have these freedoms of expression and speech, and you know, to be able to collaborate on these ideas. I mean, that should be rewarded and encouraged and even funded to the point where, you know, people are able to make a living as a truth speaker, as a researcher, you know, and people do, but their living is constantly at risk. And the ones who have had it taken away will wholeheartedly admit that. You know, the ones who haven't had it taken away yet, who haven't been censored, well, they might be like, I don't see the problem. I'm just going to use PayPal and Patreon and, you know, Google the super chats, you know, and they're fine with using those methodologies until they get censored. And now what choices do they have? You know, a lot of these people are building their own platforms because they realize, oh, that's what they need to do. And then they're also going to realize how hard it is to build their own platform, or how expensive it is to pay someone to build their own platform. And then when you do build your own platform, well, you got to market it as a platform, and you got to, you know, if you're going to make it open to other people to come on as other content creators, then that's a whole ordeal. You know, then you kind of have to start over and do everything that that Patreon is doing, or that PayPal or Facebook is doing. You know, and that's what I'm committed to. That's what Project Lumen is about. Now, is Project Lumen a specific platform? It's more of a group of platforms. It's a whole collection of different kinds of platforms for different purpose. Some are based on science, some are based on technology, some are based on just your communication, some are based on finance, and ultimately I am building this all kind of into one platform, but it's also going to be manifest on separate platforms, so that, you know, you can have special niche areas of interest, or and it is all tied together. It's very complicated in what I've been doing, because I'm building a decentralized database, a decentralized, hard to explain. Like, basically, these are the things that I'm doing are things that people in the tech world will say are impossible. So I'm one who said, oh, you say it's impossible, huh? Well, let's see about that. And that's a big part of why it's been taking so long, because some of these things are very challenging, which is why people say they're impossible. But they're not impossible. To have a decentralized, what's called an access control list, for example, which basically is like when you sign into Google, you know, you have a certain account, and you might have certain access to files or other people's files that they've shared with you. You know, this is all access control stuff that's kind of reliant on having a centralized database of users. And then they have administrators who can go ahead and access that and make changes if they need to. Well, that's the problem, is they have people that can have what we call God power. They can go in there and they could do whatever they want, you know, or see whatever they want, you know, and I don't think that's right. And people really understood how much of their private information is accessible to these unknown parties, which probably shouldn't have access to our information. They would be very upset. And I do understand it. I do understand how much of this information is viewable and manipulatable. And I also understand that they are moderating to their own discretion, a lot of times even using third parties they start out as biased. You know, we've got companies that are known affiliations with political organizations that have obvious bias, and then they're the ones that are moderating our content. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. No one would agree to that. It's a huge problem, and it needs to be fixed. And so, you know, that's a big part of what I'm doing with Project Lumen. Overall, Project Lumen is bringing light to the world. It's light-based technologies that can enable us to wake up, to live an awakened life, to have an awakened society. You know, that's what I think we all deep in our hearts, and that's why certain things like flat Earth have come to the surface recently, because we are waking up. We are realizing the deception in the world. We're realizing the crimes of many, and you know, this is to help. My projects are to help facilitate alternatives. So when we really start waking up, what do we do then? You know, and this is what we can do. This is one option that I've been putting together, and I do believe in it. And you know, I'm never going to give up on this, because I believe in it so wholeheartedly that you know, we can have our own solutions that almost, I shouldn't say undermine, but I'm going to say undermine the current structures. Because let's be honest, it's all outdated. You know, all the bureaucratic system is completely outdated. It's based on the representative system, where we have to, you know, vote for someone that's going to vote for an idea, and we're hoping that that representative holds our same values and ideals. But in this day and age, politicians, they just tell us what we want to hear, and that's more times than not. And so, you know, rather than doing it that way, we can say, well, we have technology now where everyone could have a say, everyone could have a vote, everyone could be involved in the collaborative process of creating a peaceful society. Because I mean, like, let's take a vote. How many people want war in the world? All right, like 3. Out of like how many billions of people, there's 3 that want war, and their names are Rothschild and Bush. You know what I mean? Like, those are the ones who want war, and all the rest of the world does not want war. You know, and you look at the specific cases where we have gone to war. We go into these places, and we're never given the straight truth about what is going on there. It's always kind of the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution. And they're always spinning it. The mainstream media is always spinning it, lying to us, telling us stories that are not true, in order for the people to get emotionally involved on a certain narrative that really, you know, does not serve us in the grand scheme, only serves that small select few. And if we knew the real story, we'd be like, this is an atrocity, you know. And I could go into so many examples, you know, like, I mean, Libya or Iraq, or, you know, just all these places. Like, wait a minute, what was that? Like, they had no weapons of mass destruction, you know, or you know, Gaddafi wasn't trying to, like, you know, it's just like, we were told these things by the mainstream news, and then the truth comes out eventually, and we realize, holy shit, we should not have been in there. We were giving the enemies weapons. We were, you know, it's just ridiculous when we find out what actually was going on. And that's because, you know, these guys are able to do all this stuff behind closed doors. And that's the realization, right? You realize NASA's full of it. You realize that politics has been full of it for quite a while. Well, why is that? That's because they are able to have conversations behind closed doors that the public is not privy to. That's lack of transparency. And they're able to create agreements with foreign parties, you know, that things that should be addressed by somebody like the UN, but the UN is so corrupt, it's painful. You know, their ability to have secrets has been the problem. I mean, go back to the 40s when they created the top secret. That's, you know, that's when we started losing transparency about what's going on. There was established that there's this UFO phenomena, and they just swept it under the rug, or they turned it into top secret black projects. And so now we no longer have access to that information. It's coming out. You know, other countries are releasing a lot of their information and intel on the UFO topic, for example. But, you know, what's our cosmology? I think we all want to know that. In '69, they didn't know. But then they say they went to the moon, and, oh, it's a ball Earth. End of story. And we just all take it on faith. And then we find out, you know, 50 years later, oh, it's not necessarily a ball. And the only stretch we have to make is that we have to realize that NASA lied to us. And we've caught them in lies. We've caught them in so many lies, it's ridiculous. So it's not really a stretch to suggest that they lie, that NASA lies. And so, you know, the reason they were able to lie is because they were doing all this behind closed doors. So how do we fix that? We need transparency. Blockchain is one way to have a form of transparency, where now whenever something happens, whenever an agreement is made, it's transparent. It's in the public domain. It's on an immutable database, meaning that it's somewhere that no one can, it's like written in stone, you know, for everyone to see and everyone to go back in history and say, oh, remember that agreement that we had 20 years ago? Well, it's still there, written in stone. And so you can't go back on it now because it's been declared in our agreed upon collective blockchain that, you know, this was the agreement. And this is the way that politics should be going. And it is for some countries. Some countries are considering cryptocurrencies and, you know, blockchain technologies. And I think that's a good direction. You know, I think there's also a lot of uncertainty about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. There's a lot of confusion about these areas, which I think is what makes it so people really aren't embracing these technologies we have, but instead are kind of, I don't know, getting lost in things. Because, you know, it's not just about money. It's about information. It's about the transparency that I just mentioned. That's really the benefits of blockchain. But a lot of people just think, oh, it's Bitcoin. It's about money. It's about what's the price of Bitcoin. Oh, it's going up. Now it's going down. You know, that's kind of a side point, really. The reality is that Bitcoin is going to go up and up and up and up and up because as people realize that it's a better solution than the fiat system where the Federal Reserve uses fractional reserve banking and they just print as much of the dollar as they want, and that influences the entire world, controls the entire world, you know. And then if you try to go against the dollar, if you try to implement a gold-backed currency, then you're going to get, you know, problem reaction solutions. You're going to get economic hitman, and they're going to come in there and going to say that you're attacking your people, and that we need to go in there and remedy the situation, which means take out the leader who's actually trying to implement an alternative currency to the petrodollar. That's how it's been going, folks. This has been just kind of the MO. And it needs to change. the only way for us to come out of this kind of problem we're in is to change that paradigm. You know, we need to stand up against the Federal Reserve. We need to stand up against the central banks, the central governing. I mean, look, the government's shut down in the U.S. right now. You know, because of a conflict or a disagreement about whether we should put $5 billion into a wall. Now, we've all heard probably the narrative, the back and forths. The crazy part is, you know, this is the $5 billion is such a small part of the overall budget. I think it's what, $5 trillion or something. It's insane. So it's like, or maybe it's like 2 trillion. It's like 10%, if that, of the entire budget. And what's the issue? You know, I mean, I won't want to go into the issue, but like the point is that like it's kind of children bickering. It's like children fighting in on the schoolyard. You know, it's just, it's not leaders really standing up for what's right for us as a collective society. It's not leaders speaking the truth that are not afraid to be chastised for it. You know, we don't have that. Where is that happening really in the political arena? Maybe there's a few people, I will admit, that are kind of doing that, trying to do that. But for the most part, it's just children bickering and adolescents. And these are our leaders.
Hey, as you say that, Josh has joined us when his cat's biting his finger. Josh Uber's joined us.
Oh, hey, Josh.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How's it going, Karen? How's it going,
Hello.
Aaron? What's up?
Hey, man. Good to hear
And
your voice.
MrThriveAndSurvive's here as well, Josh. And happy Flatmas 2019, Josh.
Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah,
Although
he's Uber Josh, he is. That's how he's known.
Good to have you, Josh.
How's it going, MrThriveAndSurvive?
It's going well.
Rich,
Thank
right?
you very much. Yeah. How's it going with you?
Dude, been a long time since I talked to you. It's actually probably been like close to a year.
Yeah, sounds about right.
But you're supposed to be here for the Salton Sea, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, what happened was it got down to me and one other person were the only two going to be there, and that was going to be almost impossible with the equipment and what we wanted to do. So we're rescheduling it sometime this month, and hopefully the people that did the experiment at Monterey Bay.
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah, hopefully you're going to be there. I understand one weekend you're planning to come in January.
Yeah, we were gonna go if you guys still were gonna do it. But we were told on the 28th that it was postponed or something.
Yeah, I didn't know until real early that morning that my son couldn't make it. He got they had an ice storm in Flagstaff and he was coming down from college, so they closed 17 for a while. He couldn't get down. And that was the person coming with me, and the other guy, the other Michael, his son, couldn't make it at the last minute either. And then somebody else, another Michael, we met here at Flat Earth meetups in Phoenix. He was supposed to come in from LA, and he let us know that morning he couldn't make it either. So it was just down to me, one other person with 4 cameras, a couple mirrors, and a bunch of other stuff. And there was just no way we could have done it and recorded it at the same time.
That wouldn't have worked. Usually you need at least 2 cars and 2 teams of 2 people at least.
Yeah, that's what we figured. Yeah. So, and then Michael, he told me that you all had planned to come sometime in January, so we were hoping to hook up then.
Yeah, whenever you guys want to, that'll work.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
kind of started staying away from the Salton Sea a little bit, just because, to be honest, man, it feels like that place is trying to kill somebody over there. Like every time we go over there, something happens, somebody gets hurt, something goes up, something.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of true. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm open to any other place. I do want some place that's got at least 20 miles. I'm hoping we can get a 20-mile test somewhere.
Well, the Salton Sea will work just fine. It'll be just fine. What's really cool about the Salton Sea is what we've learned now is You know how they always like to throw in refraction, right?
Yeah.
Well, because of the high salt content at the Salton Sea, it's almost like 30% salt.
Yeah.
There is no refraction. Like, there are scientific papers on this about there being no refraction there.
Oh, awesome. Absolutely awesome.
What about the salt flats? Just using the salt flats somewhere. They're a 20-mile stretch.
You talking about Brazil?
No, there's
No,
the
like
salt flats.
Utah or I don't know.
Oh, okay. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Throw it out there. I know. I thought Sydney, wasn't she talking about that originally?
That was her original. That's what she originally wanted to do for the original Salton Sea observation when IIG West and Nat Geo were out there.
Yeah.
But actually, we've been wanting to do one from San Diego up to Long Beach, up the coast.
Oh,
We think that'd be
cool.
kind of cool to do, because that's like 80 miles, dude. That'd be like an 80-mile mirror reflection.
Yeah.
But
oh, wow.
gotta figure out a way to get higher than, because like with the mirror reflection, any object in front of you is gonna block you seeing it. And I was just thinking, if we're 80 miles away, just think of all this stuff that's down the coast that we're not gonna visually see, but still gonna be in front of us, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so I think we're gonna have to be up just high enough to be above everybody, but not high enough to where it can screw with. I try to do the calculations as close to sea level as possible just to cut out all the variables, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's more impressive when you have, like with the Monterey Bay, with the mirror right on the water and the camera right above the water, it cuts out half of their arguments. Because I remember watching these videos when this first started and everyone was first doing observations. And that was the first thing they came out with was, oh, you're not taking in observer height. And so we started taking in observer height, and it still didn't work for them. And they're like, oh, well, you're not doing this. And every time we do this, it keeps coming back to, you're not doing this, and you're not doing this. And you know what? Let them keep doing that, because all it does is just keep refining our observations and our tests.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that is true. I mean, I was just gonna say that's just cognitive dissonance, but yeah, you're right. Like, let us just, continue to push us to do better science. Basically, that's fine.
Yeah,
and then they're going to continue to deny it.
I've got the equipment so we can test air density at both the mirror location and where the camera is. So that isn't going to be there isn't going to be any question on that.
That's good.
Yeah, there's actually a list of things that we've been given through different globers of like things that we should look out for, which I think is actually kind of cool. Like they mentioned the temperature of the water. We didn't have that in our last observation, which I see how it can affect, but then at the same time looking into it, how they say it should affect it and what we're actually seeing is ridiculous as far as the scale of it. You know, like it still shouldn't be happening the way that they're saying it's happening.
No, the real important thing is the air temperature that you're shooting the camera through, which is not through the water. It's just above it.
It almost seems like the way they're thinking of how we're viewing things is like things are being projected at us, you know?
Well, they're left with projection or, ridiculous refraction or some kind of thing like that. It's all they're left with.
Mirages is a good one that they try to use with Bob, the science guy, tried to tell me that it was a mirage, and I go, no, dude. When I look up mirages and when I see mirages, living in California, I live in a hot enough place. I see tons of mirages. Most of the time, the mirages are flipped upside down and really weird and distorted.
I've never
Okay.
seen a Superior Mirage not flipped upside down. And I was a weatherman out at sea doing thousands and thousands of observations for years, and never saw a Superior Mirage that was sharp and not inverted. And you always saw the main image first. Then you see what's called a delineation line where the two come together, and then the other one's flipped up on top, upside down on top of it. No exception. I've never seen an exception to that.
Yeah. The only other Mirage I've seen images of, it wasn't a Superior Mirage. It looked like as if it was like floating, you know, almost like it was floating in the sky. Like, I don't know. It looked like displaced. It was weird.
Yeah, that could be a Fata Morgana.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can't get those kind of mirages unless the light is striking you directly in the first place. You have to see the object before it can be mirrored upward. That's the problem that they don't even bring up. Well, that is the real issue. If the light isn't striking your eye to begin with, it can't be raised to where then you see it where you couldn't see it before. If that makes sense. It's a hard thing for me to describe.
It wouldn't be able to like project the image over a curve, is what you're saying. Like if you can't see it, if you can see it because there is no curve, then you can see a mirage as well.
You have to be able to see it with your naked eye to have a mirage to begin with. That's the point.
Right now, I'm just trying to picture taking like a movie projector and actually just angling it to where it'll curve around a corner right now.
Good luck.
The periscope is the mirage.
Right?
Josh,
it'll
Josh,
never happen.
Funny. You're so funny, Josh.
Thanks, Karen. Been a long time.
Yeah, good you're on, Josh. Missed you.
Well, with the information we'll have, we'll be able to use Snell's law to absolutely give us an exact figure of refraction, which there will be virtually none. I guarantee it.
What's Snell's law?
Snell's law is giving you the amount of refraction you would see if you're going from one density to another. Like if you're going from the vacuum of space to 1 atmosphere, that's going from a value of 0 to 1. And then let's say you're looking from the atmosphere through water, that would be maybe going from 1 to a 3 point something. But see, we're going from atmosphere to atmosphere. And that's one aspect. So we're not changing, according to Snell's law, you have to have a change in medium. And since we're going from air to air, there is no change in medium. That eliminates half of Snell's law. The other thing is what's called the normal line, or the what's called the line of incidence, I think. I might have my terms mixed up, but pretty much what that is that if you're looking at something like picture a straw going in the water, and you're looking at it from 90 degrees from the side, you can see that bend all of a sudden where it bends because of the density change from air to water. But if you're looking at it from straight up top of the glass down, you will see no bend at all because you're at a 0 degree incidence. So my thing is, when we're looking from shoreline to shoreline, pretty much 2 feet above sea level to 2 feet above sea level, or whatever it is, there is no angle of incidence either. So you're going from air to air, and you're going at a 0 angle of incidence. So in 2 cases, Snell's law says you're not going to have refraction.
Right.
But we're going to have the figures to show what the actual density is of the air at both locations, and hopefully a third observation over the water. We only have to be 5-6 feet into the water to get what the humidity and air density is over the water itself. And people are going to be shocked at how little air density changes even over a 20-mile area. It's minuscule.
Yeah, eat it, Globeheads.
I didn't realize that you were going to be doing this work with Josh, Rich.
We didn't either. We were hoping to meet up with him last time, and it probably would have happened. But like I said, all of a sudden at the last minute, all of our helpers that were coming along, so to speak, disappeared on us. So we had to cancel.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to go out there with not enough people on your team. Me, Snack, and Sydney tried that last time we went out there. We just wanted to. It started out as I was just taking Snack out there so he could see the Salton Sea because he had been on the live streams with us and watched it online. And I figured he'd like to see it in person. And I wanted to take him to Slab City. And it turned into we were going to do an observation. And we decided to try to do the observation with 3 people. And it does not work so well at all with 3 people in one car at all. It takes way too long because it takes too long to drop someone off and then drive all the way around the other side of the lake. It takes like 40 minutes to at least to do that.
Yes.
So it gets tough having a smaller team. It is better having a little bit larger team. When we go out to do it, we'll probably have 2 or 3 different cars. And from the sounds of it, probably 6 to 8 different people.
Oh, that's fantastic. The more the better, because people can be reflected in the mirror at the same time people are taking atmospheric tests.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Exactly. And not only getting it across the water, one of the things that Sydney wanted to do again that she brought up, she said if we ever go out there again, she wants to do the distance from Capri Road, which is the far side of Salton Sea. And there's one of the towers that's inland that's like, I think like 18 or 20 miles or something like that. That should not be seen at all. Even though when we were out there at night, we could see the lights at the tops of all those little blinking towers. Even though, as it turns out, all those little towers should have been either right at the horizon line or below the curve, no matter what.
And you were definitely seeing them above the horizon, correct?
Oh, we were seeing them hundreds of feet in the air, like 100-something feet in the air, man.
And you said they were like 18 miles away?
At least, because we were on Capri side, and just getting across the lake is 10 miles, and then it was like another 10, 15 miles to that, or so.
Wow.
I think it was like another 10. It was like, yeah, like 20 miles to these towers.
Wow. Oh, and I don't know if you know it, but I guess Mike was the one that was in touch with you by phone, texting, or whatever. He did get a laser.
Oh yeah?
So, yeah.
How far of a laser?
I think he said it'll go 20 some miles or maybe even 30. I can't remember the wattage.
We have, okay, because we have a 10-mile laser. That's a little green one.
Okay.
And then we have a really cool purple 30-mile laser. And even
Wow.
with the 30-mile laser, keep in mind, Rich, you're going to want to start looking into ways to cut down the dispersion, because that's what we found was the big issue. By the time you get out like 10 miles across,
Yeah.
the beam has become like 100 feet wide.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, he was talking about mostly using that laser to be able to locate in case we couldn't see something familiar in the background, like a building or something, to be able to locate where they were. I don't know if that would help.
Guns.
Okay.
Yeah, we use flare guns. The laser.
That's what I was thinking. A flare gun. That's perfect.
The lasers. It is a great idea, but believe it or not, it's a lot harder to find things with a laser than you would think. Because it's a laser. When it's not pointed at you or somewhat directly at you, you really don't see it. Like you only really see it when it swings across your vision and you're looking like right down that beam.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like the biggest proof to me that it's actually flat and that I'm not looking at something bending over a curve, is because I've messed around with lasers my whole life. I know not to point them in my eyes because guess what? I've had it happen briefly before. I know what it looks like when it's pointed directly at you. Like,
it's a bit strange, really. I don't see why you even have to do like 10 or 20 miles or something. It's supposed to be this curvature every mile. So after a couple of miles, the laser would be off.
Well, the cognitive dissonance has somehow the laser going through water, not bending. You know, they show they want to say refraction from air to air, but when it goes from air to water, they're saying it doesn't bend and comes to the observer on the other side. Now follow that idiocy.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is get a long enough distance to where that's not even at play anymore.
Exactly.
To where they can't even use that. Because now they're talking about it like launching up in the sky like 300 feet.
Like the Oswald magic bullet.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
At least very rich by Josh here. You're talking to one of the people that's going to help you do this.
Yes.
Yeah, we've been doing this since June.
Yeah, that's also, I mean, to have somebody that's done it before is going to give us leaps and bounds ahead of, you know, this will be the first time I've done it. I've got 2 cameras and I haven't really used them, so I'm going to be new to that. I know you guys are going to have cameras. We got a guy with an infrared camera, meaning he converted it. And so we're going to have all kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I was just talking to them on Poncho's channel about that because they were asking me, they were like, so wait, his P900 is an IR. And I go, well, they've modified it to where it's constantly in IR. Like it receives all spectrums now. So it always looks like that red. Because they were asking what filter we were using to get that IR filter. And I was like, no, they modified their camera to where it's always like that now. If they want to take a normal picture, they actually have to put a special lens on the end of the camera to block that to give them color in their pictures.
Absolutely, yes. And it is much sharper than a filter. He's got a P900 and a P1000. The P1000 he's got the filter for. And he showed me pictures of the same mountain at a distance, and the converted one was far and away better.
Oh. Wow. That's interesting. So I think, and what's cool is, not sure, may have access to another P1000.
Okay.
One of our guys has one, and whether he comes out with us or not, he'll let us use it. He let us use his camera at Monterey Bay also.
Okay. And also we'll have a drone that has flashing green and red lights on the bottom. So when it gets dark, we can launch that at different altitudes and see how long it takes before the camera on the other shore sees it.
We've tried that. Good luck.
Have you? Okay. We'll see if it works.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to see what you guys have come up with on it, because when we tried it, it didn't work so well. But we weren't keeping track of the drone. He was trying to get footage from high up of the laser as the laser was going across the water.
Gotcha. Okay.
You might be able to capture the drone with the infrared easier as well.
Yeah, it could be.
That's a really good idea. We didn't have the infrared at the time, I don't think.
Yeah, so we're going to be kind of rich in equipment. He's also got a I don't know what you call it. It's a like a 2-man life raft with aluminum oars so that we can actually row out some into the water. I don't know what good that's going to be other than to maybe get the density over the water, but he does have that available too.
Hey, Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably aren't going to want to do that.
Okay, because of the crappy water.
Aaron's laughing because he was there when he watched them take the little dinghy boat out with an electric motor.
Yeah, we didn't know if they were going to come back alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Worrisome. Yeah, that's not the kind of water you want to be sailing or boating in. No.
Okay.
I mean, it kills all the fish, you know. Like it's not sand. Like whether it's not a sandy beach.
Yeah, here it's really raunchy.
It's all just fish bones. Like the entire beach is fish bones. So yeah, no. Although there was like a guy fishing there when we were there, which is, I don't know. I don't want to shop at. I don't want to eat at his restaurant.
Yeah, but I don't know what you got that would live in there, but 30% is pretty salty.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's something. There must be some fish in there, but I don't know.
Well, Josh is going to stay a bit, aren't you, Josh? Because Aaron was talking about Project Lumen as well, and then we can come back to a bit more of your experiment if you want. Because Aaron was talking. Well, do you want to finish what you were talking about, Aaron?
Oh,
and then,
yeah, Aaron. So sorry about that, man.
Oh, no
That's
worries.
all right. We'll let
I
you
have a quick question for Josh. Did National Geographic ever come out with that?
Oh, yeah,
Did they
it's a
ever-
10-minute long segment.
Oh,
If you want, I'll post the link for you, and I'll throw it in the chat for anyone watching, Karen.
Cool.
yeah, that's cool.
Nat
Yeah, I
Geo
didn't
did
even
come out
hear.
with it, and Aaron, because you were there and part of it, you'll see exactly what I saw, what they did with everything, dude, and you'll just laugh.
Yeah, it's probably what I figured they were going to do, but I definitely like to see that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I was there. I mean, we were all there when the guy was like, "Oh, you can see it at 45 feet, and you couldn't see it anywhere else. That supports our theory that the Earth is a globe." And then, like, 20 flat earthers just butt rush the guy.
They had to cut out so much because of all the stuff that came out before it, because they took so long to put it out, that they had to be careful with what they put out there as, oh, this is proof, because there's already so much stuff out there knocking it down.
Yeah. Wow. So was it a hit piece?
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah. That's what I figured. When did they come out with it?
Like a week ago. Week and a half
Oh,
ago.
really?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only been like 2 weeks.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be October. That didn't happen. All right. Well, yeah, I'd definitely love to see that. I'm sure everyone else would too. So please post away. But so back to Project Lumen. I can tie it into this. This would be a great application for these platforms where, like, so all of the experiments that have been done around the salt and steel, let's take that, where there's been a number of them. All of that should be documented. I'm sure you guys are documenting it, but it should be kind of like in one known place on the internet, and not just the results of the experiments, but what do we learn about performing these experiments? I know there's been a lot of laser tests and long distance photography and weather balloons, and all of these tests should be documented in terms of the results, but also in terms of the process, the lessons learned, and how could people that are performing these experiments in the future, progress from where they were done previously. And so that's by sharing our lessons learned and all the experimental data. And as we do more and more experiments, we get more and more experimental data. That is technically science. And as we perform real science more and more and more, this notion that the Earth is flat and motionless becomes more and more scientifically sound. And I think that's, even though there's going to be plenty in academia and the globe heads of the world that will still choose to disregard all of this information, it'll become harder and harder. And I do believe there'll be some point where, let's put a scientific paper together. Let's put multiple scientific papers together. Let's try to publish them to journals. That was one of the original things that I was talking about on this channel, was how we can get organized and we can actually kind of put this out there. I mean, in ways that should be accepted by the community, the scientific community, the academic community. Sure, they're going to still try to deny it. They're still going to try to challenge it. A lot of these scientific journals, all they require is just the money, and we can publish these papers. Which has been proven that they're very kind of corrupt in that way, that just, you pay them the money and they'll publish whatever, even if it's a bullshit article about adamantine particles from Star Wars, which is a true story. Some guy actually just tested this out. He wrote this bullshit like thesis on adamantine particles based on Star Wars, and he published it all over the place. And scientists were considering it a legitimate article, and that just goes to show the corruption inside of the scientific community. But anyway, having our own systems of transparency, of organization, being able to document every experiment. Imagine being able to document every experiment on a blockchain, where now it's written in stone. The results are written in stone. So what's your source? Oh, it's this source that is unchangeable, that no one could manipulate the results possibly. And then we perform these experiments over and over again, and it just so happens that the results are consistent. This is real science, and this is what we've been lacking as a society for a long time, at least 100 years, where it's just been going off in more and more of assumptions that aren't really valid, and then those assumptions they stack on more and more kind of data that might support those assumptions, and we're getting further and further away from real science, real scrutiny of results. And, what was that?
Spirituality.
Oh yeah.
Can I ask you, Aaron, why do you want to do this project then?
What made me want to do it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's see. When I actually, my spiritual experiences I had when I was younger, I've had quite a few that really kind of woke me up to reality. And I spent a long time living in nature, off the land, on the land, and without electricity, without any modern conveniences. And ironically, this is where a lot of these ideas for technology came from. And a lot of this is actually geared towards bringing us back to a more organic lifestyle, to live more in harmony with nature, because I saw that that's really how we're meant to live. I lived in harmony with nature for a long time, and I plan on going back. I came back into society because I realized this is what society needs. They need this understanding. They need the understanding that the cities really have been a major wool over our eyes about what is reality, about why we're here, what is the purpose of Earth, what is the purpose of life. We've completely lost sight as a society of that. And so I kind of realized that early on, and I wanted to explore the idea of just going and actually living in nature. And at first it was difficult, but I got to a point where it was home, and I realized this is our true nature.
So in this, what it is that this whole project of yours, I know it was not quite ready to go yet. Yeah, we understand that today. It's the first thing you said, but in it, you're talking about education, sorting NASA out, flat Earth TV, a different way of living, doing the stuff through Ironcoin, getting away from all the system that we're in. So the point is to kind of govern ourselves through this system, or if you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Yeah. Education.
Yeah, the whole gamut, because that's what we've been manipulated through. They devised all these systems to manipulate us, to enslave us. The central banks, the modern academic system, the educational system, the healthcare system, the finance system, it's all created to enslave us. And, that seems like it's, I don't know, far-fetched, maybe not to a lot of people watching this, but, to a lot of people in the world, it seems far-fetched. But that's because we grew up with it. We grew up in this society that's this way. And so we just kind of assume, oh, this is just the way reality is. This is the way it has to be. But that's not true. We have free will. And that's our divine right. That's, who we are as spiritual sovereign beings is we get to do whatever we want here. Now, as long as it doesn't harm another. And that's kind of the rule. That's been the rule. That's been the one rule, is pretty much do whatever you want as long as it doesn't harm another. And that's kind of the golden rule, you know. It's do unto others as you would have them do unto you, all these things. And that's really like the basis of a peaceful society. But what has happened is they've convinced us that there's this thing, this like resource called money that is non-renewable, that we only have a certain finite amount, even though it's public knowledge that the money is printed by the central banks, by the Federal Reserve. It's the fractional reserve banking system, where they're basically creating money from thin air that does not exist, and they're creating debt that could never physically be paid off. That right there is immoral, okay? And that's well known, well established. This is not a theory, but that's what we're kind of like just all running around as if this is the case, as if, oh, I'm not a worthy human being unless I have a job that I'm paying.
Unless I'm in the system. I'm not worthy unless I'm in the system.
Exactly. And then, you know, I have to pay all this money in taxes. I have to work to pay at least, I mean, it's pretty much half our incomes at least is paid to taxes, where I don't really have a say in how that tax money is used. And then we find out how it's been used, and we're like, no, this is ridiculous. You know, this is not what we would have agreed to if we really were given an option. They present it like we're given an option, like, oh, bipartisan politics, you know, you get a vote Republican or Democrat. No, that's not how it should work. You know, prior to the revision of the Bible in the King James Bible, it was actually a violation of divine law to call yourself a king, to say that you are some sort of higher person than another person. You know, that's a violation of divine law. That's not reality. That's not natural. And so anyone who was doing that is actually committing perhaps the greatest sin of all. And look at our society. That's all we pretty much have in power are these kings and queens. And you can say the president is not a king, but you know, really it's an oligarchy. There's many you know, that are in that. Now, I do believe that America is different. I believe that you know, our founding fathers did try to remedy this problem. They really did. And now it was corrupted almost like from the get-go. And it was even more greatly corrupted when they created the second constitution in like the 1870s, which basically made the U.S. a corporation, made everyone that's born, you know, into this country a like property of really the crown. And it all goes back to the British royalty, and it all goes back to Vatican, and who knows who it really goes back to. Probably, you know, breakaway civilizations that we're not even aware of, that have been coming in here and trying to manipulate the situation. And they saw America, they saw the Constitution as a problem. And, you know, so they needed to remedy that by probably revising our history, creating the various unnecessary wars. You know, war traumatized the population.
Awful, isn't it, Aaron? Because only last year did everybody realise that the flag that America's flying is a wartime flag. How come none of us knew that? Like none of us even knew that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even a simple thing like a flag.
And there's the tassels that hang off the flag too, which I think is it's a similar kind of representation of like wartime, whereas there's a peacetime flag which no one ever sees, which it's like horizontal or vertical stripes, white and red stripes. I forget exactly. I think it's all white.
Colours aren't quite so deep, are they? There are lighter colours on the flag. Yeah.
Lighter colors, and but we're not familiar with it at all because we've been in wartime all of our lives.
I just think that's crazy.
Yeah. World War I think, you know, look back I've been looking about like a lot of history. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tartaria and the idea of like the mud flood. And I've just been kind of like connecting a lot of dots with our history and how it's all been very revised. More than likely, we had advanced technology like 150, 200 years ago. And we had more of advanced civilization that was covered in mud through a flood. That then after that, they kind of revised, they created a whole new history for us. And in an attempt to control, it's even possible that the moon was placed in order to even pull off this whole heliocentric deception. None of this stuff do I know. This is all speculation and just observation of various information that comes my way. But it really does look like this is the case. It looks like we might have that missing 1,000 years that many historians talk about. They created the Gregorian calendar, and when they did so, they pretty much devised the history until then, according to the Julian calendar. So pretty much all that's just almost like subjective, like or a leap of faith that any of it's true. And then you have more modern times, and it's pretty amazing how, you look into the details of World War II and what really happened there. It's not what we were told. It's not what we were all taught in history class. So what really happened? What was that really about? We know that Hitler had frozen the central banks of the Rothschilds. He had outlawed Freemasonry. Well, that's very interesting, especially considering that we're told that Hitler was the greatest monster that ever lived, and we're told that as a matter of fact, anyone who we're considering as a monster is compared to Hitler. But was he really the monster that we were taught? I'm not saying he was or wasn't. I'm just saying that there's a lot of evidence that challenges that
narrative. We don't know
narrative.
anymore, do we? Because we don't know if any of the past is real, like they said anymore.
Exactly.
None of it.
We don't
Can I
know
just
what to
ask
believe.
that point, Aaron, Mr. Thrive, is there anything you want to ask Aaron with what he said so far?
I just want to add also what he's talking about right now, that you never hear about the 20 to 60 million people that were slaughtered under Stalin. And why is that?
Yeah.
So when you really research those answers, you start to get to understand why Hitler was chosen as the big monster. I'm not saying he wasn't a monster, but I'm saying there were bigger monsters that existed at the same time, but you don't hear about them, and there is a reason for that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't want to get
what's
into it
going
because
on.
it's deep.
Yeah. What's going on right now in Palestine? It's the same thing. People don't even understand, and it's perhaps a similar scale of genocide that is just completely unreported on. And I hear about it through people who are living in Palestine that tell me information, and I'm like, is that legitimate? It seems like it is. It seems like there's enough people that have told me these things that are living in Palestine that show me the photographs of the destruction, that there's some really bad stuff going on there, but is it reported on? No. And do any of these
education, they're starving, they're hungry, they need blankets, they need all sorts of things, their electricity keeps going off.
Yep. And then even here in the States, things are not that great. I live in an area where I see a lot of homeless. There's people that are probably spent decades being homeless, and or some people who are very freshly homeless because they just can't get a job. They can't afford. It's expensive to live in California, and welfare is not. It doesn't do the job. Most people don't realize that, but welfare is just. It's not a solution.
Do you have that included in your program then? Anything like that?
Oh yeah. There's something called the universal basic income, which is an idea that has been tried actually in various regions and locations, even some countries, and it works brilliantly. It works the statistics have shown that when you have a universal basic income, which is basically the idea that everyone receives a certain amount of money on a regular basis, like every month or every week or however long, then, you know, and the assumption that a lot of people make is, oh, well, then people aren't going to work, people aren't going to do anything because now they're just getting the money for free. But actually, the statistics show the opposite. When you are able to remove the constant worry and stress of paying your bills, of covering your rent, and you're able to kind of just be freed of that, what happens is you become much more productive. You become much more fulfilled and happy. And that's what all of the studies show. And
I think the way it is right now, with the way that we understand it's been made, none of us actually want to work anymore now. We know we're only working for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, jobs suck. We all know that. And a big part of why they suck is because you have to essentially subvert your will to someone else who doesn't respect you usually. You know, if you find a good job, then good for you. That's, you know, it's rare. Most of the time, I think people have to just kind of like sacrifice a lot of things in order to just have a job so that they can, again, feel worthy of having a roof over their head. Give me a break. You know, housing should be a right. We should all have a house or a roof over our head, and that should be a right. And that's without a doubt. I mean, you know, how can you possibly contest that? You know, the ones who would contest this are the ones who have mansions and estates, and they have no idea what it's like to be impoverished, and they have no idea what it's like to go walk out your door and see people just sleeping on the sidewalk. You know, you can't, in California, I don't know how it is in other states, but California, you can't sleep on the street at night. So all the homeless, what they have to do is they have to like wander the streets at night, maybe they'll try to get away with sleeping somewhere, but the cops will just come and they'll wake them up and tell them they can't be sleeping. But so they have to sleep during the day. So the homeless people sleep during the day, and then now they have this thing where like you can only have like one trash can worth of stuff if you're homeless. So if you have like more, like, you know, more than a trash can worth of stuff, they'll just take it. And there's been cases where like someone might have a sleeping bag and they take the sleeping bag, literally. They take the sleeping bag that the person is using to like not freeze to death. And guess what happens? They freeze to death. This is literally happening right where I live. And I mean, this is horrific.
You're not even allowed to feed the homeless anymore, are you?
What's that?
You're not even allowed to feed the homeless anymore. That's against the law, isn't it?
Well, you can do. There might be a rule against that, actually. I mean, people still do it, and I don't know that you're going to get arrested for feeding the homeless. There are, you know, shelters that, of course, do it, and if you want to go to a shelter and do it there, and maybe that's why, you know, they do it that way. I don't know, but yeah, it's a lot of stupid rules, you know, that none of us would have really voted for.
Rule upon rule upon rule. Hey, Aaron. Obviously,
Hey.
you're not going to show Project Lumen, by the way, are you, at the moment, because you just haven't quite finished. But in 5 or 10 minutes, right? Mr. Thrive on purpose didn't look into very much because he wanted you to explain it. But in 5 or 10 minutes, just explain. Like, I don't mean you're selling it because you're not selling it like that, but that kind of like pitch to Mr. Thrive in 10 minutes about Project Lumen.
Before you do that, Aaron, are you a programmer? Are you able to do a lot of this? Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's I've been living and breathing code for decades, but like, especially with this project, you know, I've just been in a cave.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, and I'm not only, you know, I've been building a lot of this stuff from scratch. Like, there's a lot of things that I've tried to use in the past. I thought, oh, maybe this will, you know, serve my purpose. But as it usually turns out, things don't. And so I have to build a lot from scratch, which is like why this is taking a long time. And so, yeah, okay. So, basically, I'd say that Project Lumen it's the culmination of a vision that I had a long time ago, which is that I was sitting there meditating in my grass hut and kind of contemplating, you know, what would a solution for the world look like? And I realized that, like, there's one out there. It's in the ethers. It's like it does exist in potentiality. It's like the whole notion that, could you throw a piece of chalk at a chalkboard and eventually it would just write out the word God, right? And that's the whole argument for like the existence of God or intelligent designer. It's obviously the answer is no. It's never going to just randomly write out the word God. However, a person could just go up and write the word God, right? And that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm saying, all right, so the solution is never just going to invent itself. It's never just going to create itself. But if someone could actually create it, what would it look like? And that's what I asked myself long ago, and that's what I've been on the journey to discover ever since. And so it's like, and I'm actually writing it, you could almost say, into like one page of code. So it'd be like one file that essentially contains all of this code that could then go on to be used. It could be literally written into stone, and then future generations would be able to use this same code to kind of achieve the same solution, which is a decentralized form of self-governance, a decentralized form of trade and commerce, a decentralized form of communication and collaboration, right? So all these things that we want to be able to do, whether it's work on projects together, refine our scientific experiments and the results, and be able to collaborate on results, whether it's be able to trade products and services and get paid for that trade, whether it's be able to create content or work on a project like a film and have our contribution to that project be tracked, and then any of the profits that might come into that project be distributed to ourselves based on our contribution. So basically a fair system of contribution, distribution, and how we collaborate and even govern ourselves, right? And the question is, like, how do we create a government? How do we create a new government? And so my answer to that is by practice. We've had a lot of practice with the current existing government, and it's not working out. So what we do is we create a new one, and we start with a small group of people that are trying this out, and we kind of run tests on it, and we say, okay, well, what might make this a better solution? And then we update it, we improve upon it. And then, or even better, we create a system that allows multiple groups to try their own thing. And these groups can try their own thing, and over time, what we do is we come to a more and more refined process that seems to work universally for everyone, that seems to be the best solution. And so it's not just me saying this is how the government would work best. It's not just any one person, but it's actually an ongoing process of refinement. That's why the Constitution is amendable, because the founding fathers realized that the Constitution, although while it was a good start, it needed to be amendable because times change. But how do we amend it? And that's the checks and balances. That's the branches of government, and that's what was set into place, and in theory should still be working. But what I think, there's a lot of things that weren't taken into consideration, like the ability for lobbying to get out of hand, and politicians to be swayed by certain private interests, and a whole lot of other things that just weren't foreseeable by the founding fathers, or maybe they did foresee it. Like Benjamin Franklin was quoted as saying, someone asked him what they finally came up with, and he said, we've given you a republic if you can keep it. And that's the thing, is we haven't really proven that we were able to keep it. We've kind of lost our republic, and you know, there's some people that might argue that that's what's going on now with Trump and QAnon and you know, these various initiatives to potentially bring back our republic, which I'm hopeful for. I do believe that. At the same time, I'm not dependent on that. I'm building a technological solution that I believe, if that's really what Trump and QAnon are all about, then they will get on board with this platform just the same as everyone else who wants to see a better society, you know, because this is the better solution. I mean, you know, a bunch of older people that are just in Congress trying to learn about things that they don't understand, trying to make decisions which they're not really qualified to make. That's not a viable solution, you know, but that is our government. That's what we have right now. And that's why we have so many problems, because, you know, it's very stagnant, and it's not, the speed at which we can update is very slow. Whereas technology, software, we've been working with this process of updating software ever since the inception of software. The idea of having a decentralized place where it's stored, where projects are added to, contributed to, and updated based on a collaboration of various people. That's called a repository, a code repository. And that's something that we work with on a day-to-day basis. You know, it's not this new concept. I mean, it's, you know, maybe 10 years old, but it's become very well established. And this is how all open source software is sort of managed already. And actually, they have been bringing some governmental documents into these version control code repositories, and that's been kind of happening, and so that's an improvement. But the process of updating is still very, very behind. You know, there's actually this concept in software called continuous deployment, which more and more software companies are starting to use nowadays.
Aaron, can you do this all on your own?
I have been. I mean, I would prefer not to, but I mean, I have been. Yeah, I mean, I've been building all this on my own. You know, I've tried to work with partners. I have, actually, and that's been to my detriment big time. You know, I've had a lot of business partners throughout my years, and I've been involved with a lot of startups, and you haven't heard of any of them because they all flopped. And in just the last year, you know, I had 4 different people that I was working with, and they all betrayed me. They all, you know, demonstrated that they were not trying to help me with my vision. They were just trying to get their own gain, and they were trying to exploit me, and they did, to whatever degree, which is another reason why this has taken so long. You know, I entrusted people that I shouldn't have, and so you know, now I'm completely alone in this, but I need to be, because I mean, I cannot trust anyone else at this point. And no one really understands the technology like I do. You know, if someone were to come along that was a software developer that also saw this vision, I would love it, you know, because I would love that kind of help. But a lot of these people, all the people that I was working with, claim to be business developers, but they aren't even that. You know, a business developer usually is just someone who knows how to talk and say what you want, very similar to a politician. But they don't know what they're doing. I know more about business development than any of the business developers I worked with, you know, because I've been involved. I mean, I've played practically every role in a startup, and I've been involved with a lot of businesses, and so I understand what's necessary. Now, can I do all this?
When you get this project, like, because you say you are nearly finished, when you get this going, surely you can't do this all on your own, I meant. Surely you'll need some help.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I will definitely call upon help. You know, I have some people who are kind of chomping at the bit for me to get this done, because they want to help in that way. They want to help spread the word, marketing kind of thing. There's a built-in like kind of a multi-level marketing system into this. But that requires me to have it all production worthy and ready to go. Actually, what I intend to do is when I launch, I'm going to start a channel that's pretty much dedicated to this project, where I'm actually working with the people. I'll be doing live streams and having live chats and getting people on board, finding and kind of recruiting people that do have the skills in various areas. And everyone, I really just want people who are on board with the vision and have integrity. So that's going to be kind of my job, is to discern who's that and who's just pretending to be that. But all the while, I want people to get on board, and I want people to be able to help with it and get it out to the world. And that's going to be a big part of this. This is not going to be, even though I have been building it in a vacuum, once I launch, it's going to be the opposite of a vacuum, where I'm going to be getting out there and really pushing it, quite literally. I mean, that's a big part of any business. You got to market the business, right? And I do believe this market itself in many ways. And I believe that people will help me in that regard, especially when they understand. I think as people understand more and more what this is, it's very, I know it's very abstract at this point, and I've been saying all these things, and saying it for like a year on your show, Karen.
Yeah, we've been following you, Aaron.
And so I know it's abstract, and I know people, like, I'm sure there's people who wonder whether I'm still working on it or not. And I hope they watch this episode, but who knows? And I do want people to, and I try to post about it every once in a while, just so people do know that I'm still working on it, because I have had some people who've bought into Ironcoin, and that's still, an option right now. And that's how people can help the greatest, actually, is to buy Ironcoin, because that's what kind of affords me the ability to even keep on going. And quite honestly, like, I reward you more for buying Ironcoin earlier. As time goes on, it won't be as cheap, put it that way. And that's to reward everyone who's kind of the early adopters. You get in early, you buy some Ironcoin, even if it's $5 worth. Well, you'll be glad you did once another 6 months rolls around and this thing's blowing up. Which I intend for it to happen. I mean, I intend for this to be bigger than Bitcoin. I intend for it to be bigger than Google. I really do. I'm not stopping until that happens. And even when it does happen, I will still continue.
So how do you get Ironcoin?
Just go to ironcoin.org, and you can go through a few cryptos, or you can just send PayPal. And there's a place to put your, you got to create a wallet. So you can create a wallet through ironwallet.org, but the instructions are on ironcoin.org. And then I'll just send you Iron to your wallet. You give me your address, and I send the coin. And it'll be there. It's that wallet is based on Ethereum, and so what that means is it's stable. Like, it's not going anywhere. And you can rest assured that it's more secure than a bank. It's more secure. Like, you get your own bank. You have to write down the seed phrase. You'll get a little seed phrase when you create your wallet, and you want to save that. You want to write it down, and you want to save that seed phrase, because if you lose it, then your coin. But that's your bank vault. You have your own bank vault by keeping that seed phrase secure. And then and I also send Flat Earth coin to everyone who gets it for free. Or if you just want Flat Earth coin, I send that for free. So if you just want to get a wallet address and send that to me, I'll send you some Flat Earth coin. Either way.
A separate question, but just something that came across my mind. I think we're pretty much beyond repair on the U.S. Constitution. It's not the original Constitution anyway. It's been incorporated, and there's all kind of other junk that goes along with that. Have you thought about, or are you going to be working with people that are into the sovereign law thing, to where you can actually create your own sovereign land and different things like that, so you're not subject to these land taxes and all the BS that's associated with that? So you can, once you buy something, you can't be thrown off your land, and you're actually, then you can make your own sovereignty so that you're not subject to like the local bar laws and things like that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I have a number of friends, people I talk to about that stuff. I'm not as versed in it as a lot of these guys, but I definitely have always planned on, a part of what I want to do is kind of have a guidebook for people to take on that verbiage or vocabulary, to be able to protect themselves from law enforcement, or if they are in a legal situation, how to handle that in a way that's protecting your own sovereignty. But also, I've been working with, like, one of the things I want to do is create these representative legal entities that would ideally have a lot of powerful people and a lot of resource available, that then you could kind of, like, let's say you had some land, you could make that land a part of this collective trust, that then now you're protected by this legal entity that we will go and fight for you, basically, if need be. We will protect your rights as a sovereign being. So that way, it's not just a bunch of individuals that don't really have much power in the societal legal sense. But now they are protected because here's a powerful organization that is actively protecting the people that are members. And so that's kind of my line of reasoning there. Because, it's tough. Like right now, I don't have, my driver's license is expired, and I'm like, okay, should I get a new one? I haven't been driving for a while. And, I'm more inclined to go ahead and play the game just so that I don't run into trouble, because I don't want to end up behind bars. But at the same time, I don't want to endorse this very corrupt system, and I don't want to give away my sovereign rights. And so it's, kind of a back and forth where if there was an organization, like, let's say that I'm, on the board of this organization that essentially we play by the rules. Like, we get our company is intact. It's essentially doing everything it needs to do to be an accepted member of the society, right, as an incorporation, and all the members are as well. And that way, we can represent the people that might be members who are not. Then they don't have to worry about any of this stuff. And so, like, for example, like, if you don't want to pay your income tax, that's a challenge that I would recommend to any individual, to go up against the system and say, okay, I'm not going to pay my income tax because it's unconstitutional, and people have won that in Supreme Court. Okay, but that's not cheap to take that to the Supreme Court. It's not easy. You got to have all the legal firepower, and for any individual, that's not the easiest thing. If that individual has a bunch of money, maybe. But what about, like, if we create an entity, a legal entity that represents people in this way? We will go to court for you. We will go, we will take this to Supreme Court. Our clients do not need to pay their income tax because we will go to court for you. See?
You mean like using more like sovereign law and stuff? So you're more sovereign. Yeah.
And it will enable all our members to be sovereign as well as be protected, through all these things. Because, I mean, it's one thing to express your sovereignty, but you're up against a system that doesn't care. And that's the problem. It's like, the police don't care. I mean, they're annoyed when someone comes along and starts saying, I'm a sovereign being. They just get annoyed. They're going to arrest you because of that. and then you're going to go before a judge, and oftentimes the judge is annoyed as well, and so they're going to give you a less than desirable judgment because of that. And yeah, you could take it to the Supreme Court, but is that really what you want to do, just to avoid a traffic ticket, or you want to avoid putting tags on your car, and so you're willing to take this all the way to Supreme Court? No, no one wants that, and so let's get an organization that is willing to do that, as well as go up against these powerful institutions like NASA, or even the Federal Reserve. I mean, let's go up against these guys, using their system, because I do believe it's just enough that we should be able to go, and I mean, people have won the case against income tax. We should be able to win the case against NASA. It's, if we're paying our taxes, a lot of them are going to pay for NASA, and there's evidence that incriminates them as misusing those funds, then that's a crime that needs to be accounted for. And maybe we're too small potatoes to like really take that on, but if we were to form a collective body that actually had the resources available to take it on, then I see no reason why we wouldn't succeed there. And we're not gonna, what are we going to do, wait for the government to tell us that NASA's full of shit and it needs to be dissolved? I mean, that's never going to happen. And the Space Force, I don't know what that is. No one really knows what that is, but maybe Trump does. And maybe it's an attempt to disclose some of this information, which some people believe. Or maybe it's another attempt at like further indoctrination, further entrapment in a greater slumber. So, I'm not willing to like wait for that. I want to form something that's actually going to stand up for our rights as sovereign beings. I mean, that's the reality here, is we are already sovereign beings. We just need someone to look out for us in that way. And I'm perfectly willing to be that someone, because I can build this technology that can enable us to work together in these endeavors. It's not just going to be me by myself.
I'm pretty sure Rich wants a change. Josh wants a change. I'm pretty sure all the chat room want a change.
Yeah,
Chat
I think
room,
a lot of
don't you want change?
You want change, chat? Yeah, I think so many people want to change, and but where do we start, right? That's the question. What do we do? What can we do? That's the question that I think isn't asked enough. I mean, maybe a lot of people ask it, but we don't answer it enough, and that's the problem. It's like we need to be having these kinds of conversations about what do we do, and once I kind of have launched more of these projects, then they can be more of the central topic of discussion, and that's my intention. Until then, I'm just kind of sharing my vision and trying to get people to get on board with the vision.
You've got to make a demo for this then, so that you can obviously explain this. You've got to make a demo.
Well, I hope to just demo the thing itself. That's the plan. That would have been the plan all along, like today or last show, is to have the thing itself to be able to demo. So I don't have to like show a video of something. I just say, hey, yeah, go to, Iron Platform or whichever domain I'm going to end up using for these. But I mean, that's the plan. I mean, you can see, like right now, you can go to projectlumen.org, you can go to ironcoin.org, and you can see some of this vision that I painted. Not a whole lot, I'll admit, but it's hopefully enough that kind of gets people's appetites for more. And in that way, then you can also get on board right now with a viable cryptocurrency that you could have as an investment that will, I do believe, come back to you. Will be a worthwhile investment. And then what's going to be like the actual platforms, like I said, there'll be a universal basic income. So just imagine, we have a currency that is just given to people based on their engagement, based on their contribution to projects. And then as projects go on to be more successful, they get more rewards for that. And this is money. This is the same thing that the government's trying to use on us and say it's like a non-renewable resource. They try to act like, oh, we only have so much money. Well, then why are you printing it? Why don't you print some more? You know, or why don't you just stop printing it? And why don't we settle with what we have? You know, I mean, these are the real crimes against us.
A lot of people think by printing money, oh, that's going to sort everything out because there'll be more money in the system. But every time you print masses of more money, you just devalue the currency, yeah?
And that's the number one reason why cryptocurrencies, they generally have a limited overall supply. So, you know, Bitcoin, there's never going to be more than 21 million Bitcoin in circulation. With Iron Coin, there's never going to be more than 26 million. And so it is based on cryptography. It's based on the software, but because of all that, it's actually like a physical limitation. Like it's physically impossible for there to be more than 21 million Bitcoin. And that's the beauty of it, really. That's the beauty of it, because now you can't have inflation. There's not one party that decides, oh, let's just go ahead and print up some more Bitcoin for me, which is essentially what the Federal Reserve has been doing. You know, they're like, yeah, let's print some more dollars for me. You know, and
do you know what I would say, Aaron? We need money, or whatever, whichever way it is, to buy things, food or whatever. But I just wish that money had just stayed money, and the people were the most important. It's not the people anymore. That's what part of your project's about, isn't it?
Yeah, it's money is just supposed to be a means of transaction, an accepted, agreed upon value that we can use to trade. And really, the idea that you can make money on money should just be, it's just ridiculous. First of all, that's ridiculous. Now, that's not, we should be doing that right now because that is how the system works. And we kind of need to. But in the long run, yeah, the idea of making money on money it's a violation of the laws of physics. You cannot create nor destroy energy. You can only transform it into other forms. And money should follow natural law. And so, everything that we create should strive to follow natural law. So our systems of self-governance are the same way. As long as the person doesn't harm another, they have nothing to worry about. They should have nothing to worry about. I think the highest pursuit is to find yourself, is to spiritually explore within and to understand who you are, what is your unique purpose in life, and how can you offer that to the world. And that should be it, really. That's what life is about. And so that's what my system is going to reward more than anything. And in that way, I do believe I can create an ecosystem that is based on that. And so now we're valuing what is truly valuable, which is people's unique expressions, their creative works, and the collaboration, the enlightenment of each other. This is all valuable to me, and I believe everyone else, and the idea of like, oh, well, I can create this business that then creates a service that then exploits people in any way, but it doesn't matter because I'm making money. That's wrong thinking, and that's a crime. And now I don't think those people should necessarily be imprisoned for that crime. But I think what we need to do is instead we need to develop a system that rewards people for what is actually valuable to our society. So that's the thing. It's like, every place I have worked, there's the situation, and this is like every industry. I've worked in supply chain logistics. I've worked in music. I've worked in film. I've worked in a whole lot of other areas and I've seen this everywhere. Where essentially you have the ones at the top who make the most money are not the creative ones. They're not even the ones who know technically what's going on. They're the ones who are narcissistic enough and egoic enough to just take that power, they take that control, and usually they're not going to listen to the ones who really know what's going on. They're not going to listen to the experts. Instead, they're going to assume that they know better, and they're going to make the decisions, usually the wrong decisions, but it doesn't matter because, you know, they're the executives.
Well, should we ask like Rich what he thinks, like kind of your idea, because it's not quite ready to go yet. What do you reckon of this project then, Rich?
Yeah, what do you reckon?
I think it's fantastic, actually. I would like to see, well, I guess I need to at some point get better detail. I really am into having the current legal I even had a structure in place not affect us whatsoever, because I didn't agree to it. None of us agreed to it. We were sold into it with a birth certificate. And, you know, like you were, and there's nothing wrong with what you're saying as far as like a group going to fight for us legally, whatever. My thing is they don't have a right to bring us before the bar, so to speak. And that's a whole thing with that too, going back to, you know, law of the sea and different things like that. We agree to go before the bar in our situation that we're in now. And if we can become sovereign, they have no authority over us. Now, you're right. If we're going to drive on their roads, we have to be susceptible to having a tag on our car. But if we have enough of our own land where we're driving on our roads, we don't need to be licensed and we don't need to have tags. And we have our own sovereign system that takes care of people that go after other people. And like you said, it does come down to, if you're not going to be harming anybody else, you haven't broken a law. And that's not the way we are right now. And so yeah, I applaud your efforts greatly. I can't wait to see what you've come up with. My idea would be to have like what we've come to know as Twitter and YouTube and what we're doing right now, things like that, all together on one platform.
Yeah.
Which is under the control of what you're doing, Project Lumen, which isn't decentralized, so nobody can cut you off for being a conservative or a liberal or a libertarian or whatever. Right. Which is what's happening right now. And you know, this goes back to the system is so rigged. You were talking earlier about like the people from Google and Facebook testifying before Congress. They were actually coached by the senators, and they weren't sworn in, by the way. They were coached by the senators before they even talked about how to say this, how to say that, how not to get in trouble. We'll cover you if you do this. And it comes down to a lot of these senators have stocks in Facebook and Google and things like that. So they didn't want the stocks to tank with the truth coming out. So the system is so spiderwebbed that, to me, it's got to be a clean break for people that want to get off of this system. And we're, you know, just the election alone of Trump, whether you like him or not, indicates that the people are done with it. They want to see something. They want to see it overthrown, really. What's going on? Because there is no justice in the land.
If we stop voting for the way it is, then wouldn't it change if there was a vote of no confidence?
I mean, there was what, 30% vote this last time? 30% of the population voted. I mean, what happens? What would happen if it was only 1% of the population? They'd still go forward as
absolutely
usual. Yeah, I mean, they don't care.
They wouldn't have the backing of the country, would they?
But I mean, it doesn't matter. They don't. I mean, they never needed that before. You know, I mean, the voting is just it's optics. It's just pretend. It's like, oh yeah, you guys have freedom. You have a choice. It's all corrupt. You know, and I agree. Like that Trump was even voted into office. I think that's a major indicator that people want to see at least something different, if not the entire downfall of what has been. And I do believe that's what's going on. But you know, that's my own speculation. But also, again, you know, I'm not someone who's going to say, oh, Q's going to save us all, and so we can just sit back and enjoy the show. You know, I am enjoying the show, and I've been eating plenty of popcorn, trust me. But like, but at the same time, like, you know, I'm working my ass off here, because I think now more than ever is when we need this kind of solution. I mean, these guys like, Sundar, the CEO of Google, goes before Congress. I totally agree. They were coaching him. I didn't know that he didn't swear in. I guess I now that I think about it, I don't remember him ever swearing in. And I definitely noticed that during that hearing, like there was a number of the people who were just kind of like, you guys don't manipulate search results, right? They're just kind of like leading him. And he's like, oh, of course not. Of course not. And then, and how many people asked him, how many Congress people asked him, like, are you doing anything with China? And he says, no, every time, no, every time. And then that night, there's a giant fire at the Google headquarters in China. Of course they were doing something to China. Of course they had to cover their tracks. Oh, and then lo and behold, Sundar sells tons of his stock right before that congressional hearing. It's like, give me a break, people. Like, you can't see this. Like, people aren't noticing this. I mean, and of course they're not. And that's the problem. The system is completely outdated. It's just so bad. It is mostly corrupt. It's very disorganized, and it's completely ineffective. Regardless of how corrupt it is or anything else, it's ineffective. I mean, they can't even decide about the stupid wall. I mean, just, it's so ridiculous. It's like you can't make a simple decision, and all of it is because of politics. It's all because of politics. It has nothing to do with the practicality of having a border wall. Because again, you can see all the statistics to show that it helps prevent illegal immigration. And so that's all we should really need, and we should just get the job done because this is what we need. But we also shouldn't be funding NASA because, well, here these statistics show that they lied through their teeth. We also shouldn't be, giving any subsidies to companies like Google or Facebook because they've already demonstrated that they're willing to lie before Congress.
Well, Google itself is a CIA creation. I'm 100% convinced of that. And that's why they made it. And that's why their algorithms got really good, really fast. So everybody started using this because they had the government money behind it. And the whole thing is just, it's a hornet's nest. And I don't see at this point, I don't know. The system would literally have to collapse for it to be right again. They would have to pull the Federal Reserve out, which I think, my channel started with, you better have gold and silver and a few other things, food and stuff like that, for the next time they pull the plug on us. But, now it comes down to if they really get rid of which they can, I was talking about the national debt, how we're never going to pay it off. That's not really the issue because all it takes is a stroke of the pen and that national debt goes away. It's called repealing the Federal Reserve Act. And you have to still deal with some consequences, like China holds so many billions and billions of our not currency, but our T-bills. So you and I'm thinking, hopefully that's what all these new trade agreements are about, and negotiation with China, saying, hey, we're going to pull out of the central bank because Trump is making some overtures again, which no president ever has since Kennedy. He's making overtures against the central bank. And we saw what happened to Kennedy with that. But if he is somehow able to repeal the Federal Reserve Act and they go back to printing our own currency, which it should be, without usury, without interest. Why do you need to have interest when it's your own currency? So that whole thing is just nonsense. But the national debt goes away, and I'm hoping he's negotiating with China, saying, hey, you agree to eat this money and we'll keep buying your goods, type of deal. Not that simple, but you know what I mean. Well, we'll keep you afloat, because you're going to go down if we go down. And that's the simple truth of it.
Right. And that's why, going back to why I even started doing this, the vision that came to me was really about transitional technologies. I saw that, there needed to be a change. There's all this fear and threat of a cataclysmic event where we lose communications, we lose the internet, we lose power. And, of course, people are saying we need gold and silver, and the preppers are saying, we need to have all that taken care of. And you know, a part of me agrees, like, we should be prepared. You know, honestly, I'm prepared with a knife because I know how to survive with a knife. And that's really the main thing that I need. But if I had more resources, I would have more prepped. But I also very much, like, my life, I feel like, has been.
I'm proud of you, Aaron. I'm proud of you that you've got this far, because you're doing this all on your own. And I know you've had a few, what do you call it, hiccups along the way because of other people. And I know you work really hard, and I know you really want this to work. I just know you're probably a bit frustrated that you haven't got the last bit there. And I know that, but yeah, you're going to have to come back on Sun and Moon and talk about it again.
Yeah, just have to come back.
I can tell you, Aaron, when you're set to go, and I'll get some iron coin to help you out. But when you're ready to go, let me know, and I'll spread the word the best I can.
Awesome.
And maybe I've always, my whole life, I was pretty much in marketing and sales, so maybe I can throw a few bones out that way too.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm going to love that kind of help. You know, I think a lot of people like yourself, Rich, and, you know, a lot of people who want to see these kinds of things for the world, you know, are going to be on board with this. That's been my vision and intention, you know, because I don't want to see this cataclysmic event happen. You know, I've heard the narrative that essentially what happened with Trump was that there were a few attempts by certain military insiders, white hats in the military, to stage a coup against the deep state, to take back our country, to take back the republic, and fix a lot of these problems. Because it's not like, you know, we're the only ones that are aware of these injustices, or that we veered from the Constitution, or that the Constitution wasn't even perfect, you know. But the narrative has been, or I've heard from some sources, that, you know, they've tried, like the Oklahoma City bombing actually was an attempt to thwart an initial coup. Maybe 9/11 was actually another attempt to thwart a coup. And I say attempt, but they succeeded in thwarting these coups, right? And so they were going to try another attempt. But what they decided was, why don't we try to get someone that we can trust, aka Donald Trump, in there legitimately, without having to cheat. So, you know, they didn't cheat in the election, even though Hillary did, and that's coming out.
Yes, is it hopefully going to, like, in the chat room, we've got, where is he? We've got GoPro Keith. He's been watching it all. He just thinks it's going to explode any moment over there in America.
Yeah, well, I mean, things are exploding. And you know, so what happened was that these military insiders, they came to Trump and they said, we want to do this. We want to do this legitimately without alarming the people too much, because that's a major concern. You got to think that the majority of the population is comfortable in their slave state, right? We've got mass Stockholm syndrome going on here. People are very comfortable in being slaves, the majority, right? And so when we suggest things, like when we suggest that there's even these problems, most people are going to just discard it as we're conspiracy theorists and that we're off our rocker. Even if we have all the evidence in the world, doesn't matter. I mean, we have all the evidence to show that the earth is flat, doesn't matter, right? People are still going to challenge us on it relentlessly. And so I think some of these white hats have realized this, and so they realize what's necessary was a gradual process, a gradual transition to a better world, and to gradually take down this force without alarming the people. Now, you have the death of McCain, you have the death of George Bush Sr. What are the circumstances around that? Well, we don't really know exactly, but a lot of the people who have been paying attention to this stuff from the QAnon perspective do know that more than likely they were.
I'll say something about him. When I grew up, I didn't see that he was a really bad man. You know, he didn't seem to be in that many dramas or anything. But now I look back and I think he was the worst one of all, Senior Bush. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was pretty evil. I mean, he was there at the JFK assassination. Director of the CIA, and who knows, all the other things involved with
One World Order, wasn't it? He was going on and on about One World Order.
He was the primary proponent for New World Order, and he was probably behind 9/11. But now, this is a good example. 9/11 is a great example. You got they're currently having a secret grand jury on 9/11 that have been, in a lot of the intel or the case has been put together.
Let's hope.
Well, yeah, you know, the case has been put together by a bunch of engineers that have been looking into this. You know, engineers for 9/11.
Did you hear that then? That they're doing something else about 9/11 again? That they're reopening it?
Yeah, or they're opening it for the first time, because I mean, I think it was never really open. That was the problem. You know, they never really did a valid investigation. And now they are, and it's going to, I mean, it's going to incriminate people like George Bush Sr., maybe George W., and
well,
who knows
probably
who
blame
else.
it all on him, and he's died. What can you do when the guy died? You know, if you blame it all on him, he died.
And that's a part of what I'm saying here. It's a gradual process. I mean, yeah, you know, we would have all liked to see him hang from a noose. Maybe not all of us, but a lot of us. But let's look at what's best for the whole collective of society. You know, that's like if Trump were to come out and say that George Bush Sr. was an enemy to the people and he was behind 9/11, guess how quickly he would be impeached? Very quickly. He can't do that stuff. He can't come out against 9/11. He can't come out against NASA, not publicly, not right now, because his main job is to stay in office. He's got to just continue getting these executive orders filled that is going to enable the people that are in these positions to do the things. Like, you know, to have this private grand jury on 9/11, to have these private grand juries.
Did you hear that 9/11 is going to be opened up again? So I was asking Rich if he doesn't hear. Did you hear that?
Yes, I have heard that. So, and it would be something that we're not going to hear about until it's very far along in the investigation. But yeah, I have heard it, and I believe it's probably true. Yeah, too many people have reported it.
Yeah, and then there's what is this hacker group called the Dark Lord or the Dark Overlord, which has come out, I think, just a couple days ago, and basically they've claimed that they have a number of different pieces of information regarding 9/11 and mostly the money around 9/11 and insurance, and that if like basically they're putting it out to certain parties that are incriminated by this information. If they don't want to see it released, they got to pay this hacker group, and then other parties that maybe want to see the information released pay this hacker group. And they're going to incrementally release information. They already just yesterday released some information, not a whole lot of juicy stuff yet, but they're just going to incrementally release more and more of this information. And of course, they're hoping to get paid. But I don't know, and it's probably not a coincidence that it's happening right now at this time when supposedly there's a private grand jury going on. And also, you know, regarding grand juries, I mean, there's, you know, it was found recently that there's $500 million of tax evasion with the Clinton Foundation. There's 70,000 sealed indictments that are being and supposedly, was it 2 days ago, military tribunals began. Private military tribunals that are being documented, but they're not going to be released to the public until later on, and they're not necessarily all going to be released to the public. And this is why, so that the people are not too alarmed too quickly. You know, we've got to really increment this out to the people so that we don't have mass chaos. You know, there's so many people that hate Trump and would try, and I mean, you know, there's people like the Congresswoman who just said, you know, she was elected to Congress, now let's go impeach this motherfucker. She literally said that in public. You know, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to impeach Donald Trump. And why? Because he's doing all this stuff. He's taking down these power structures. Now, do I know that for sure? No, I don't. You know, am I a massive Trump fan? No, I'm not. You know, I do support the guy because as far as I can tell, he's doing what he said he was going to do. And that's probably a first for presidents ever. And, you know, second, all the indicators, the executive orders, and just his actions all kind of line up, you know.
I
no way
listen
out
to
with this
people.
narrative.
I listen to people say things. You know, people even in the chat room who I talk to privately, and they're saying, "Yeah, but you've got to give him time. He can't just go in there and do this." But I thought basically, when everything's such a lie, you need to just stand up instead of saying, "Hey, how are the astronauts today?" Yeah, and there's a program of him talking to these astronauts. You know, instead of all this, why does he just stand up and do it?
Because he would get impeached. I mean, he would. I mean, yeah, he would get. Who
You think
knows?
so? But if we want to change, it has to start somewhere. You know, if he
Well,
got it
and-
right, he'd be the man of the future if he did it, wouldn't he? He would be the man of the
Well,
future.
he very well maybe. If he pulls off all that he's supposedly doing, then he will be the man of the century at least. You know, of course, he's not recognized as that as right now. But yeah, if he legitimately pulls all this off, he will be one of the greatest heroes of all history. You know, because he's succeeding with. I mean, supposedly he's had multiple assassination attempts, which is not surprising. But he doesn't publicize that. See, he's keeping the public calm. He knew that he was going to get attacked like this. He knew that they're going to try to take him out, try to impeach him. He's been prepared for that. I mean, if the narrative is correct, then I mean, if like there's a lot of narratives, okay, with all this stuff, and some of it seems more woo-woo than others. But honestly, this is what I've come to, and you can call me woo-woo if you want, but I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident that JFK Jr. faked his death, that he and Donald Trump have been working on this for almost 20 years. Now, maybe Donald Trump didn't know the whole time. Maybe he did. They were friends. And, you know, Donald Trump was talking about being president back 20 years ago if the time was right, if the situation was right. And now it has been right. And, you know, so that would mean that this is not just like shooting at the hip, you know, seat of the pants kind of thing. This is a well thought out plan known as the plan. And it is. If you study QAnon, it's unavoidable. They have there's so many coincidences that add up. The timestamps of when everything is posted, and it's insane.
So don't you, Rich?
Say again. Oh, you're muted, Rich.
Rich follows QAnon and all that. He's quite hoping, aren't you, Rich?
Yeah, but I've got a deadline on it. So, and that deadline is at the end of this month. I either see something, yeah, I either see something really moving by then, or I won't be interested anymore until I see something happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that, like, when is the time going to be right then? What, now? 20 years' time? When? Come on. We know it's all happening now. It's all happening now. That's what I think.
Can't be more right than now, because the executive orders he put into place last year are now in effect as of yesterday. Yeah. And the Senate is in place, and so is the Supreme Court. So it better happen in January, or I'll drop off the bandwagon for it. That's for sure.
Can I quickly, just like a little bit of a change, but like over Christmas, there was this big report that martial law is now in America, and there's all this stuff moving around over Christmas. Do you reckon any of that was true, or do you think that was just to frighten us again?
As far as I know, that's not true.
Well, we've been in martial law since.
We've been under a state of emergency since the 21st of December last year, and in fact, we were under Obama as well.
Yeah. So why are we on a state?
Actually, hey, Rich, have you checked out the two different flags that the U.S. has?
No. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a wartime flag and a peacetime flag. You want to know which flag is waving right now? That we've all held our hand to our heart to?
I would say the wartime one, especially since 9/11.
No, since the Civil War.
Yeah,
it went up and never came down.
Oh, really? Okay.
What it is the
perpetual state of war.
It's a different color. It's light blue. It's a lighter blue and a lighter red, and it's got like a frill around it.
Are shaped different.
Yeah. And do you know what? In reality, it may never have been flown. America have always been at war.
Well, that's one of those things. It's kind of like a little bit of a theory. Yeah, because I don't know if it was ever flown. Like, that's like some people say that the peacetime flag did exist, but did it ever really exist? Maybe, maybe not. I mean,
you know what? What's interesting is there's actually literature where they describe it, and it's not like it's not like in a school book, like them teaching you like oh yeah, this is what you need to do kind of thing. It's more of just like it's kind of mentioned in passing in a story, like they were just describing a flag that they were looking at, like an American flag that they were looking at, and the way that they described it is completely reversed and opposite of what we look at right now, and it's crazy.
Don't you think it's really strange that none of you know about it? It should have been at least even if they were saying, this is the flag that we fly now, but we have this one. And nobody seems to know about it. And then suddenly it just turned up.
Yeah, I mean, I've known about it for a little while, but, I discovered it through the QAnon stuff. Some people in there were tossing it around,
What did
that's
QAnon say about flat Earth? What did he say about the shape of the Earth?
That it's not flat.
Well, sort of. When someone asks,
I don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth.
Well, see,
that's ignorantly saying that.
That's pretty shallow understanding of him, though. You got to understand that, because he also said that JFK Jr. is not alive, or to be specific,
no,
one of the Anons.
If he's able to get in and get all these files, get all this information, bro, you got to be telling me that he can't do the research that you've personally done, or I've personally done, or Karen's done,
It's not about doing research. It's about, again, going back to the gradual process. Now, if QAnon had come out and said that the Earth is flat, that would actually, he would have lost more followers than gained some of the flat earthers.
I agree with that.
Plus, he has said numerous times, disinformation is necessary.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you really look deeply into it, which is what he encourages us all to do, or they encourage us to do, then you can see that these are cases that disinformation is necessary. They're not going to come out and announce that the Earth is flat through that channel. They're not going to announce that JFK Jr. is alive through that channel. See, and the way it was worded was also basically such that you can kind of interpret, well, is the Earth flat? No, there's mountains and valleys. Is JFK Jr. alive? Well, who are we talking about? Are we talking about John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.? Are we talking about what's the other, the JFK Jr. that was just pulled out of active service, meaning that alive being another way of describing active, right? And so essentially it's a play on words, which Q does. Q likes to play games, and that's not at our expense. That's sort of so that the deep state, they're reading the Q posts as well, and so they can't just come out and say everything. They have to do it through a lot of it through cryptography and code in ways that people who are intelligent and who are researching and who are puzzling this whole thing together, they will get. And then when they're on the right track, they're encouraged by Anons who are white hats that are a part of this. And it's pretty amazing, actually. And I kind of
getting everybody behind him before maybe he does it or whatever it is, so that because he has to have, if he's probably going to do it, he probably needs the military behind him. But it's like, well, how long? Come on. Come on.
You mean how long for flat Earth? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if he decides to change things a bit more, then he probably have to have the backing of the military, and then he can probably do something different. But I'm just thinking, come on.
Yeah, I mean, of course,
when he's pretending, hello astronauts, and talking to them, when he must sit there laughing then, because he knows that that's not.
But if you watch Trump, though, watch him when he's doing that interview, he's trolling the shit out of NASA. Why does he want to create a space force? Because he's trying to pull the power out of the hands of NASA. If you go back to JFK, original JFK, the president, what was he trying to do? Yeah, he was creating a silver certificate that was going, against the Federal Reserve and the petrodollar. But he was also trying to get the information about NASA. He was also trying to collaborate with the Russians on our space exploration. JFK was not a proponent of top secret projects. He was not for this idea of keeping anything from the public, really, that would have been of interest. Sure, you got to have state secrets to protect certain things.
Why do you have to have a wall? Was that to keep you in, or to keep everybody else out? But I just think, why talking about all that when actually you don't need all that once you tell the world different.
That's the topic. That's the topic of discussion. I mean, the point of the wall is to prevent illegal immigration, so that if you want to immigrate, you have to do so legally. And the problem is that people are doing it illegally all over the place, especially coming from that southern border. And so, the statistics shows that by having a wall, you're able to thwart 99% of all of that illegal traffic. Now, and then there's all kinds of speculations behind the scenes of why this is really happening. And I think probably the best one is that, the cabal, the deep state has been the primary importers of drugs. They've been bringing drugs into this country since probably before JFK. And that's been a big part of how they fund a lot of their black projects. And so this would actually prevent them or slow them down in a great regard to bringing in a lot of these drugs. And that's probably why they don't want the wall now, or part of why they don't want it. A lot of it, though, is really just that that the Democrats do not want to support Trump. They don't want to.
Listen, if you actually, the wall is obviously there, but if you suddenly found that England put a wall up along like Dover and across, wouldn't everybody start going, what the hell's going on in that country if they're going to start build a wall?
I mean, I guess.
If anybody is like if anybody has moved into a country, UK is completely full of people. What is it? We've got 60, 70 million people living on this tiny little place. So we've had a lot of people coming to our country. There's no wall.
I mean, how many are illegal immigrants? Do you have any idea about that?
Some of them have come on the tunnel. But can I just ask, Rich, you've been so into QAnon, so what's changed your mind then?
Nothing's changed my mind. I just, at some point, you have to come up with a logical point where things have to start happening. And if they don't, then you have to start questioning why aren't they happening? Whether Q is real or not, and I 100% believe it is, and I believe Trump is associated with it, and I think you're going to find that out here at some point. But whether that, no matter what people think about it, people think it's a psyop, whatever, think what you want. It is waking people up to the fact that there is a deep state. They don't have your best interest in mind, and they're getting people to research and open their eyes to stuff that they have never seen before, that would, frankly, 10 years ago would have shocked people into some sort of catatonic state. Whereas now, you can say, through QAnon, you can see that 9/11 was a hoax, which we all know who are awake it is. And other related things. The Federal Reserve is nothing but a stranglehold on the world. So is Israel. So is Saudi Arabia. And so was the CIA in North Korea. That was a cutout state. And the people of the world didn't know this. But QAnon gets people to research that. Whether what you think of it or not, it is doing a good service. Yeah. But to the point that there is a reckoning of justice. The saying is justice delayed is justice denied. With everything being in place now, if I don't see movement by the end of this month, then I think that part of it is bullshit. And that's just, I got to call it what it is. So it's all in place now. There should be no reason to hold back. And I don't want to hear this. There's secret military tribunals. Again, that is justice denied for those of us. If I did the same thing things that Hillary Clinton did or the other pedophiles did, and I don't want to get you a copyright strike or cut off here, but I'll talk around the issue. If I did half of those things, not only would it be public, but it would be swift justice. And I'm tired of the double standard. And now that everything is in place, yes, there's enough people in the Supreme Court now to approve military tribunals. And I think it should be that, because some of these people would go to certain cities like Washington, D.C., where you would never get a fair trial. You're going to a place that voted 93% for the Democratic candidate in each one of the last 5 elections. So if you have a Democrat that happens to come up for justice and they go to DC, they're just going to walk. That's just the way it's going to be, because people aren't for justice, they're for their political party. So I do believe military tribunals had to be secured, and that is now secured with the Supreme Court. It is secured with 53 majority in the Senate. Right. And now that that's in place, I don't want to hear any more delays. Justice needs to be served. And it's got to be public, because if it's private, it doesn't do any good, because then the perception is still there. And I'm tired about people worried about people going nuts in the streets. Let them go nuts. People need to wait. People need to, they need to wake up at some point. We got to stop treating people like kids. You know?
Yeah, I kind of hear you there.
What they've got away with, really, the people in power, what they've got away with is disgusting.
Absolutely. And it's beyond the disgust that you can even think about.
Disgusting. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Rich. And I can actually agree with your kind of ultimatum for Q. You know, I had already given him an ultimatum. I was thinking like November 22nd, something was going to happen, and nothing really happened. Although some things have happened. I mean, I think notably the funeral, George Bush Sr.'s funeral, where they all received notes. That's something. And now, since like the 21st or 22nd of December, all of these various elites like Obama and Clinton's, you know, they've all got, all their Twitter accounts have gone silent. You know, that's kind of something too. It is something. Now, what is it?
What do you make of all then? What do you make of all those letters then?
I mean, you know, it's all speculation. What was on the letter? I mean, it was fast. It was short enough that they could read it pretty quickly. I saw one thing where you could actually see George W. was writing something. I think a lot of people are of the belief that George W. flipped on the deep state, and that maybe he's come out and, you know, given them a lot of information. But at the same time, you know, it could all be it could be all be theatrics. It could be, you know, I'm not putting that out of question. You know, I would never put that out of question, because that's what they're known for, right?
Well, it's not very good, is it? If Josh has had enough, Mr. Thrive's almost like, yeah, come on, come on. And anyway, it's just coming up right time for Project Lumen then.
Exactly. I mean, that's why I've been doing what I'm doing, and that's why I've been picking up the pace, because I realize now we need something like this more than ever. I mean, you know, we need something like what I'm building, even right now, to figure this stuff out. You know, I think the Q movement could utilize something like this, a tool to better organize our research, and that's why they're using 8chan, is because that's the best tool they've had available that allows for a sort of a discussion with the people, where the anonymity is protected, right? And that's a huge issue. You know, if they tried to do these conversations through just Twitter alone, well, we know who all these people are, and you can create maybe a fake account, but that doesn't change the fact that Twitter knows who you are. You know, whereas 8chan, you are truly anonymous. And so it makes sense, but at the same time, there's a problem there.
I just think that they found another way of making another set of drama. You know, it was another thing to watch. Thousands of people.
I've had the theory.
They just found another avenue to do it.
Yeah, I've had the theory that even like QAnon could have been something put into place to distract people from Flat Earth. I think Flat Earth has a lot to do with all of this. I think that, you know, the powers that have been, they do not want Flat Earth revealed, because it's, I'd say, faster than anything, kind of destroys people's paradigms and causes them to wake up,
Can I
causes them to
say,
realize.
I've never really got into that queuing thing. I just think, I just was, you know, now it's gone long enough. I don't know, just reveal it, get it done, whatever it is, do it.
Yeah, but you know, we have to have some patience because this is such a delicate topic. I mean, I've had patience. You know, I would have loved to come out with this stuff years ago. I would have loved to been talking about this the whole time. Quite honestly, I haven't because of my patience, because of my recognition that, you know, I do not want to paint a giant bullseye on my forehead. You know, and if I had come out even with my own YouTube channel a year ago, that's what I would have been doing. And even by talking on this platform, Karen, you know, I'm kind of doing that. I have exposed myself, you know, and I've had some problems because of that. But it's been much more manageable than if I had come out full force. And that's, you know, that's been to my detriment, really.
Yeah, but it's been going on long enough now.
I mean, what's long enough though? How long does it take? How long does it take to overthrow an evil cabal that has been in power for hundreds of years? How long should that take?
You
know,
I understand that, but I just hope that Trump wants to build a wall. So is he any better? He wants to build a wall.
I mean, the wall is irrelevant. You gotta, like, the wall is so small potatoes, like, to what's really going on here. That's just what the public sees. What's really going on there is, you know, Trump is holding his ground because he told the American people that he would build a wall. Now he's holding his ground on how much money to budget for the wall, and the Democrats are fighting him on it, and they do not want to agree because then they will be seen as weak to to Trump. And so this is a civil war going on between Trump and it's not just Republicans versus Democrats. It's Trump versus everyone else in many ways. And there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than we're aware of.
The chat room are getting a little bit like they're the same. They're getting a bit impatient now. The chat room.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're all impatient. You know, I think we all want to see change happen. We want to see it now. I think, especially as flat earthers, we would love to see this truth exposed. I would love to see it. You know, I kind of at first thought it would happen much quicker. I didn't foresee the amount of pushback we were going to get. You know, on like just coming out about the flat earth, I thought, well, you know, that we have some scientific evidence on our side. I thought for sure there'd be plenty of people who'd be willing to just look at the scientific evidence and kind of come to a conclusion based on that. But that's incorrect. People don't care about scientific evidence at this point. You know, they care that what they care about is that the school that they paid $50,000 to go to, and they spent 4 to 8 years of their life, and now they're in a profession that's based on that education, that's based on the idea that these things are all true and correct, that we are in a heliocentric world that came from the Big Bang. We know that for sure, right? That's a fact. And if that weren't a fact, that means we've been lied to our entire lives. And most people are not prepared for that realization. And so now realizing that there is
we're the lucky ones, are we? We're the lucky ones. We've woken up. But even waking up wasn't nice, was it? I mean, when you actually start, you know, you wake up by watching a video or two, and then you think, oh, okay, and you think, right, and then the next day you think, well, I've got to do some more research, and then it leads you to everything that you've believed in isn't true. I mean, that's quite a big shock for people, isn't it? Nothing you're living in is true. It's all lies.
And I started this journey out very young. I mean, I was studying the JFK assassination in my early teens. You know, I understood that there was an evil force. I realized in kindergarten that we were prisoners, that this is not how life was supposed to be. I understood that. I didn't know all the details about what was going on and what had transpired, and now I know a lot more of those details. And so for me to realize that the Earth was flat was actually pretty. It made a lot of sense, and even though I studied physics in college, and for me to comprehend that a lot of that was based on a lie was challenging. But I was able to comprehend it and able to sort of accept the idea much more easily than probably most people are. I can recognize that it's a massive, it's a total paradigm shift.
This whole thing has been with you since you were a kid then, really, Aaron?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I've been on this kick for actually many lifetimes.
Rich, how long have you been a flat earther, Rich? I mean, when did it really hit you?
Oh, it hit me one day in May 2015 when I saw the Chicago picture and they said it was a superior mirage, and being a weatherman, I knew immediately that was total bunk. And I started doing the calculations where how deep the inversion layer would have to be if it existed, and it would have to have been over 5,000 feet deep, which is non-existent, doesn't happen. And at least not with the conditions I was seeing. And I knew I wasn't looking at a superior mirage. So all I had to do was then, I had no idea what the what the calculation was, 8 inches per mile squared. Once I learned that math, I slept on it, woke up the next day, was like, I'm a flat earther. There's just no way. So to me, it was logical. I couldn't find any other answer for why I could see Chicago 60 miles away.
Yeah.
When you actually like that bit, you just know, don't you? You didn't
Yes.
know, and then you do.
Exactly. And there's no, why throw cognitive dissonance in it? Yeah, I wanted to find any reason I could not to believe it, because I had built my channel up over, 6 or 7 years to get to 2,500 subscribers. And I knew if I talked about flat earth, all of them would go away, and all but a handful have. So, I that overnight period was a lot of thinking. Now, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another reason. And there wasn't any. So why should I cognitive dissonance myself? And just, I'm not that kind of person. If truth comes my way, I accept it if I can't find a logical alternative. And a logical alternative to why I can see Chicago from 60 miles over a lake, almost all of it has not come to this day. So not even their stupid standard refraction would even show me a fraction of Chicago at that distance. So, until they can show something like that, and I laugh when I get comments like, the spinning globe ball Earth has been established fact for blah, blah, blah years, and all the evidence is there. It's like, show me one piece of evidence that I can believe, just one.
Dude, Aristophanes stuck 56 in the ground, man. I don't see how you don't take that.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Can I just make a question, though? There's a question for Rich. Super Leads in the chat room just wanted to ask what your opinions were on the Gatwick drone incident.
Gatwick drone.
The what drone?
What it was is a drone supposedly went up at Gatwick Airport, which obviously is one of the busiest airports in the UK. And basically it halted all the planes because this drone went up. And then someone made a video of something happening, and the drone basically it was like if you threw something at it, the drone sort of fell out of the sky. So it was never going to bring an aeroplane down. But I mean, I suppose you don't really want drones flying in front of planes if it was true. But to me,
you know what? I don't know anything about it, but the first thing that comes to my mind is that it's a false flag, so they can come out with new laws to limit drone usage.
Well, they did something at the airport. They added something or took something away on that airport.
Well, yeah, you don't want drones at an airport because even a small bird can destroy a plane, because if it goes through, it's called FOD, foreign object damage, gets into the engine. So yeah, you don't want a drone because that'll down an aircraft. So, but I mean, that's for sure. But it reeks of false flag to me.
Yeah.
We can't trust anything. We can't trust anything, can we? I brought it up before about those two. And this was nothing to do with Flat Earth, but there was these two female reporters. She does a lot of crime stuff, and they said that they were doing a satellite link up. And the only thing is, either the green screens, they put the wrong green screen, or basically, what red car or red van went past one, and then immediately went past the other, and everybody could see it.
Yep, exactly. They were in the same parking lot.
Yeah. If they can do that on a news thing, imagine all the other things they're lying. Well, we know they're lying. That's the point. We do know they're all lying.
Yeah, well, in the first Gulf War, CNN went up on their rooftop of their Atlanta, Georgia station or whatever, and they had the guys built, wearing all this military, paramilitary stuff, and gas masks and things like that. and all of a sudden they had a siren go off, and they said it was a drone, drone strike, or what was it? Not a drone strike. What did they call those missiles that came in? Scud missiles, and they possibly had sarin gas or whatever in them. And all of a sudden, they drop down and they come back up, and each one of them is wearing a gas mask. And then they got the all clear. Well, we found out later that all that was staged on top of the rooftop in Atlanta, Georgia. They were nowhere near Iraq. So they've been BSing us forever.
Yeah.
We're just smart enough now to even question it. That's what's going on now. And there's enough cameras everywhere and people recording stuff so we can start finding out the truth.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron, I think Mr. Thrive's got to go soon, right? So
Okay.
we've been going. Yeah. This 3 hours has gone really quickly, I have to say. We've been going for 3 hours. It's really quickly. But what's your message now, Aaron?
Well, my message is for people to keep an open mind about everything, to try to put themselves in a position where, you know, they're trying to see things from others' perspectives, no matter what it is. You know, I think we get, even as truth seekers, we get tunnel vision. And, you know, we might be, okay, realize the earth is flat, but we don't want to even look into QAnon. And I think that's a mistake. I think it's dangerous, actually, because how did we get in this mess in the first place? We made assumptions. We made assumptions about things, and those assumptions sort of stacked on top of each other until we had a completely false reality based on lies.
Well, maybe Senior Bush had a real hold on things. If he was there for the Kennedy thing and he was there till just the other day, maybe it's really, sorry, it sounds really horrible because nobody likes death, but maybe it's good he's gone then.
Well, maybe, you know, I think, and you're right, and that might be the case, you know, and rather than me saying, yes, absolutely, it's good he's gone, or even he was this evil traitor, or, you know, I don't know. I mean, yeah, he was talking about
What's your message for Project Lumen? Your Project Lumen. We can't.
Yeah, I mean,
you can do something with Project Lumen.
This is what I'm doing. You know, this is what I have been doing. This is my solution, and I encourage everyone else to kind of like look at things that way. Like, what could I do? What could I do to fix this? You know, it's too easy to just talk trash on some idea or someone else's research or you know, conceptions of what's going on here. The reality is no one knows what's going on. So if you pretend like you know what's going on, then you are lying to yourself because you don't. The reality is none of us know what's going on, but also the reality is we have free will to do what we want. And so if you want to see change in the world, then be that change, cause that change, stand up and do whatever it is you're driven to do. And that's the simple part about it. You know, Project Lumen is my solution that I've been working on, and I do hope and pray that, you know, I can launch it successfully and that people will see my vision, want to get on board with my vision and help make it a greater reality than even I could possibly do by myself. And that is, you know, what I'm hoping for, but I'm not expecting that, you know. I'm just doing what I'm doing, what I can do, and I urge everyone else to do the same, you know, and look at things with a very unjudgmental eyes, where you're just, you know, taking in the information, seeing how it relates to the other information that you have, and what might that mean, you know, for us, for you, for other groups, for the future of humanity.
Your children's children.
Exactly. You know, I've been thinking a lot in terms of our ancestors, our, you know, future ancestors, and that's kind of the Native American philosophy. You know, is make the world. You know, there shouldn't be any. What is it? There should be nothing that would, or everything they do should benefit multiple generations to come. And
so what's the next thing with Project Lumen then, that you're going to try and get a demo sorted out?
Well, really the simplest thing is this platform that'll help distribute Iron Coin. It'll allow people to fund these specific projects. So it's kind of like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe for very specific projects where your contributions are tracked in relation to these projects, and so you'll be able to get ongoing rewards for contributing to various initiatives. And all these initiatives are light-based technologies or initiatives that will make a better world and help to make a better world. And so that's my
I
main
love you, Aaron. I know that your heart's in the right place about this. You're one of my first flat earth friends and on Facebook and stuff. And, we followed you before we even went on YouTube. And I can't wait for you to finish this one. But I understand how difficult it is, that it's not just that easy. You're creating a whole new way, system, program, whole thing.
Yeah. Thank
But
you,
just going to say Rich and Mr. Thrive at the same time. Rich, what do you want to say anything before we end the hangout? Because obviously I know Aaron's been working really hard. He's been going for it for the last couple of weeks to try and get it done.
Yeah, just the same thing. I can't wait to have you hear that you're coming back to actually show the platform and everything. And like I said, whatever I can do to help you support it, I'm in.
Awesome.
It's likewise from Sun and Moon as well, as you know, Aaron.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for that. That means a lot to me. It really does.
Yeah, thank you for your effort behind it. Somebody's got to have the vision first.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I'm getting loads of messages. So thank you very much, chat room, for being there and listening. And we have talked about quite a few things today. And obviously, Josh, he had a computer problem. He's not come back. Oh dear, here we go. My computers are going now. Sorry. Facebook's on, isn't it, somewhere? So thank you very much, chat room. Thank you very much, Josh. Thank you very much, Mr. Thrive and Survive, for coming and listening in on this. And obviously, thank you so much, Aaron. And we just look forward to the next bit. And hopefully we're nearly there.
Yeah, thank you all.
Nearly there. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Take care, guys.
You got to come back again now, Aaron, and do it again.
Absolutely. Coming soon.
Hey. Big love.
Viva
Much
la
love. Thank you, everybody.